OTB AM. This is OTB Sports Radio.
Yeah, it's a blue moon rising over Manchester last night as Manchester City thumped Manchester United. It finished 3-1, but it was the most aggressive, one-sided 3-1 that any of us can actually remember. So if you're a Man United fan this morning, we'd like to hear from you. Use the hashtag OTBAM, or I'm sure some of you are watching us on YouTube. Leave us a comment. Is that the new low? Is that as low as it can go? Is this rock bottom? Is it?
Well, as an individual encounter, no. Manchester City, at the end of the day. Like, there were a couple of confusing things about this. First of all, how have Manchester City managed to slip so far off Liverpool in the Premier League title race is one of the things you get when you're watching that game last night. And second of all, how on earth did Manchester United beat them last month?
But hang on, right? I actually think that losing to Watford with their new manager is bad, but being so outclassed by Manchester City is actually worse, because it shows you what you should be, what you could have had. If only you had been the team that had got Pep Guardiola, this would be you doing this to Man City and to everybody all across Europe.
But the thing is,
that's worse than losing, I would argue, to Watford, because Watford, one-off results can happen, but this is like, oh, Jesus, that's what we should be.
But they've known that for so long. Like, it's a lack of surprise. There's a bit of a surprise element of, you know, of Watford kind of pondering along, and granted, with Nigel Pearson in tow, they always looked like they were going to have a bit of a turnaround, so perhaps the surprise element wasn't as big as what it would have been. But in this case, it's Manchester City. We know that they're a far superior side. We know that Manchester United were going out there with Jesse Lingard as one of the focal points of their attack.
They love Jesse Lingard.
Bernardo Silva as the focal point of their attack.
It's true, but they've been telling us for the last 3.5 years, oh, Lingard's really good, you know, we've given him this massive contract and he's getting into the England team and he's got all those endorsements.
But then some of us have actually watched football in the last 12 months and have actually seen, 2 years really. Like, it was Phil making a point yesterday, wasn't it? Reminiscing in Christmas 2017 when Jesse Lingard went on that fine run of form.
His celebration was annoying people.
It's 2018, 2 years ago at this point. Yeah, like, this is where we're at now with Jesse Lingard. There has been no surprise to see a performance from Manchester United against City that would be subpar. And there was no surprise when you look at the scoreline that it is 3-1. Now, granted, football's not black and white and you can't just judge something on the scoreline. That could have been a 5-0 win for Manchester City last night. And I would accept then that perhaps our conversation might be a tad different. Because the tie is somewhat alive. It's not alive, really. But, like, there's a 5% interest in perhaps the return leg. It has saved their face a tiny bit.
Miguel Delaney's saying this morning that Manchester City eased off in the second half.
That's true.
Right. So, if you were Pep, what do you do in the next leg? Do you ease off and like let Man United have this kind of weird sense of, oh, we're not that bad, it's okay? Or do you go out and crush them?
It's a good idea, because what I was thinking is that Pep Guardiola should be giving them the hairdryer treatment to his players last night. You come and you beat us in the Premier League a month ago, we're going to go to Old Trafford and crush you 6-0. That was the plan. But then you raise a very valid point, because the Manchester City fans were chanting last night, Ole Gunnar Solskjær, we want you to stay. And I'm sure Pep Guardiola wouldn't be too unhappy if Ole Gunnar Solskjær was around for the long term. So perhaps, you know, let them have that confidence. You're quite close. Just sign well, Ollie, and you'll catch us next season.
2 lads away from it. If you'd had Maguire and Pogba, who knows? That could have been a 3-all.
And you know what, Ollie? That Jesse kid, what's his surname, Lingard? Yeah, looks a real talent.
Yeah, because, I mean, does he want to see Pochettino in the dugout there? Or, you know, if Man United had any balls, go and get Diego Simeone. Or somebody, like, who's going to radically alter how the club thinks of itself.
See, that is a key point.
What does
radically alter
want?
how the club thinks about itself, because the club doesn't want to think anything else about itself at the moment, by the sounds of things. Like, we'll be speaking to Andy Mitten very shortly indeed, but there are obviously questions to go around at United, and a board and an ownership that have obviously had plenty of questions asked of them over the last few years. You come into a transfer window, and that's where they make their money. Granted, January is not always the easiest place to make transfers, but listening to some of what Solskjær said in the aftermath of the game last night, it doesn't really seem that they've got a hell of a lot of targets lined up. There's a possibility they won't do anything in this transfer window, he mentioned last night. Granted, don't sign somebody for the sake of signing someone. But United should have realised last summer that they needed to sign again in January.
There was a 20,000 piece written on Haaland and why he'd gone to Dortmund, which 20,000 word piece, and which I didn't read all of it. I'm not going to lie to you. I flicked through the bits, and it was like they'd texted him and they'd met him and they'd talked to him and they'd been in contact with him and they'd got all the players to love bomb him over the last ages and ages and ages and ages and ages. Like, how hard is that?
Well, okay.
Set up a WhatsApp group Pogba, Haaland, and I don't know, somebody else good. De Gea
Jay
and,
Lings.
like, maybe not Jay Lings, right? Maybe not. Maybe I'm saying that.
Kids love him.
Well, does Haaland love him? Maybe he does. Maybe Haaland's out there buying whatever the spray thing is, ice cold, whatever it is. Why couldn't they just do that? Like, so if he's not world class yet, it doesn't really matter. You're signing somebody that everybody goes, oh, okay, we've got one of the best young players in Europe, even if he's not, right? I don't know. I mean,
like I'm sure many United fans won't be pointing the finger at someone like Mason Greenwood last night or anything like that. And
No,
his performances over the last year, it's the likes of your Lingard, it's the people who are of that experience.
He's 27.
Exactly. That this is our new thing here on OTB.
Jesse Lingard's 27.
It's incredible, really. I wonder how he celebrated his 27th. But, like, I mean, I don't want to reduce 20,000 words into one sentence, but perhaps, you know, Haaland didn't go there because his father is Alfinga, and, like, he told him, don't go to Manchester United. I'm sure there's way more to that, and, like, there is way more that United can be doing in the transfer market in terms of tapping up players in a legal way, in a way that would suggest that you actually are part of a long-term project at a club, because United's long-term project, it seems to be a bit of hit and miss at the moment. There are a slew of fairly talented youngsters. If they had the right talent around them, you'd imagine their progress could be accelerated.
I don't know. It's so shambolic. I actually thought they were okay for the first 11 or 12 minutes. I thought that there was one bit where Fred got the ball in front of the goals, twisted and turned, despite the fact there was loads of Man City players around, and they passed it out and they kept possession for at least 4 more passes. Like, okay, they're being a bit brave tonight. And then you realise they're at home and actually they're just playing on the break. And I don't know, look, with Rashford's pace and his ability, they've got the opportunity to build a team around that. But, like, where's the rest of the team? Where's the philosophy? What are they actually doing? And where's the defensive solidity that you need to be able to be a team on the break? And then when the goal was scored, I was like, Jesus, Man City have had the ball for ages. And then I went back and watched it. They'd only had it for a minute. Maybe that's a long time. But it wasn't like they'd had the ball for 15 minutes without it going out of play, and Man United were desperate. But in the meantime, the whole centre had drifted away from Silva, who's like, yeah, I'm going to have a shot from here. Why wouldn't I have a shot? Like, thanks very much. It was a great shot, but I don't know. I think there's a structural issue with Manchester United at the moment that doesn't look like it's being fixed. The coaching doesn't look like it's good enough either.
It doesn't, and, like, there's a situation now where he's been there for a while. Like, this isn't kind of first week in the job, trying to feel his way through things. Like, there have been issues that he has been presented with as a coach that he probably should have done better to fix over the last 12 months or so. Now, granted, with that squad of players, I don't believe that any coach would bring them to winning a Premier League title, and some Manchester United fans probably always believe they should be challenging. The question is, have they made a step forward this season, or is this season going to peter out just like last year? Because that would be a situation where you probably have to accept that Solskjær is not the man for the job.
Yeah, I mean, are they in danger of... They're not in any relegation danger or any of that kind of stuff. It's all going to be fine, isn't it?
They absolutely will be fine. Like, I mean...
That would be great, though, a relegation battle. Right, let's bring you through the newspaper headlines, because there's obviously a lot of focus on Manchester United. On the back pages, are going to start with the Star. On the back pages, Blue Murder. Manchester United 1, Man City 3. Rashford stunner can't spare blushes after home demolition. Ida's audition for McCarthy. This is Mark McCadden's story. Adam Ida could move closer to a first senior Ireland call-up on Saturday. Mick McCarthy sends his right-hand man. So Terry Connor, TC, is heading off to watch Norwich at Old Trafford. All of a sudden, that Old Trafford game is a big, big game for Manchester United. It's not like a run-of-the-mill game against Norwich City where they're 3-0 up after 15 minutes. Suddenly there's a lot of pressure. And, Norwich, will they stick him out? They probably won't, but they might. And Keane in line for FAI role is another Mark McCadden story. He says the appointment of 4 independent directors to the board of the FAI is expected this week and could come as early as today. So today was always the hinge point of the week where we expected this to happen. Olympic Federation of Ireland President Sarah Keane is rumoured to be one of the people identified by executive recruitment firm Amrop for a place on the 12-person board. So Sarah Keane obviously took over Swim Ireland in the aftermath of all of the scandals which had rocked the previous administration, turned that organisation around, then subsequently turned the Olympic Council of Ireland, now the Olympic Federation of Ireland, around, and has been involved in many of these before. So she would be brilliant to have on the board. And the only other story I'm going to give you is from the front page of the Irish Times, which says that the potential independent chairman of the new board could be Roy Barrett, who is the managing director of Goodbody Stockbrokers. And this is Jack Horgan-Jones' story. This is the only place I've seen that. So FAI line up stockbroker for key positions. So Barrett would be the chair, Sarah Keane would be on the board, and then I don't know if there would be 3 independent directors and an independent chair, or 2 other independents as well as that. So we'll wait to see what those names are.
The Irish Examiner goes with football last night. Silva Bullet, Bernardo Cracker helped City inflict derby misery on United, and Donald Lenihan, why I'm so enthusiastic about the new Andy Farrell era. We've got a bit of a rugby positivity hour coming up later on OTBAM.
Okay, so inside the Irish Times here for you very quickly. Sorry, I should have opened this up before we came on air. There you go. It's the same. Obviously, the main story is City's slick first half display leaves United on the ropes. Not out, obviously, because, it's a 2-leg tie. But it could be 6-0 in the next leg, because, maybe it will. And then anger as Shamrock Rovers get go-ahead for B team. So there's going to be some emergency meetings going on with the FAI to decide whether or not Shamrock Rovers should be allowed to enter their B team in the second division, in the first division, obviously, of the Electricity League. And Bielsa in his running game looked right at home with the Emirates as a Barney Roney piece. Kenny philosophical about the loss of players. Third level competitions ensures counties denied the service of college stalwarts. So we're in that situation there.
Racing Post, fresh blow for Henderson as Altior stayed in his box. So his underwhelming season took another unfortunate twist yesterday. Jump Racing's biggest names, or one of Jump Racing's biggest names, ruled out of Saturday's Silviano Conti chase at Kempton. And Gordon Elliott says it's full steam ahead to Cheltenham with Tiger Roll. Great news yesterday, revealed that the 2-time Grand National winner is back cantering and will definitely make the Cheltenham Festival. And the back page of Racing Post is repeating history. Leicester can draw first blood against their Midlands rivals.
The Irish Sun back page is dreadful with the red in red. United fans storm out at half-time as City cruise. I mean, the Man United fans have had to put up with a lot, haven't they? A lifetime of success and glory. And now they're asked to sit through 90 minutes. Anyway, it's eat away. Terry off to Old Trafford, and Rodgers mad to lose ace. Brendan Rodgers insists Leicester star James Maddison is going nowhere this month.
The Irish Independent, which you've done, have you?
No.
No. Whelan fuming over Harte's exit. This is Glen Whelan speaking to Aidan Fitzmaurice. Ireland veteran hits back at accusations of downing tools at Scottish club. Axes him by text. And Laois scrambled to field the team, writes Michael Verney. So attempts were being made to salvage a sorry state in Laois Camogie last night after it emerged that the Moor ladies were unable to field an adult team for 2020 due to the unavailability of players. And Racing, primed for a Munster backlash, says Mike Prendergast.
So the back page of the Herald this morning, I was thrown under bus. This is a great story. Aidan Fitzmaurice has spoken with Glen Whelan, who details his treatment at Hearts from the new manager who came in and just didn't like the cut of Glen Whelan's jib. Basically texted the group chat on Christmas night to say, no thanks, don't need you for the game tomorrow. It was the Edinburgh Derby against Hibs. And they said they only needed an 18-man squad. Whelan's name wasn't in it. And that's how he found out that he was being dropped in the group WhatsApp.
Ruthless. Christmas Day ruined. Daily Telegraph this morning leads with Golden Nugget. Root hails match winner Stoke says England take thrilling second test. It's a level series with South Africa. And The Guardian going with the same story. Hopefully I've made him proud. Stokes dedicates latest England heroics to stricken father.
Battered, they don't have the red, and the red is the back of the Daily Mirror, and they've got our story from yesterday. McShane will sit tight this year. Kennelly, no 2020 vision for Cathal. That was the story that we broke yesterday, where Tadhg Kennelly basically told us what the rules were about signing players. So it looked like Cathal McShane should be available for Tyrone in this season. So I've got the Irish news for you as well. Intense derby clash, just what we need. Harte. So this is Mickey Harte talking about a game this weekend against Armagh. And then Paddy Tally at the bottom is, tired players are stepping away, says Tally. And he's right. Players are tired because they don't get any break, because the season and the fixture list is a shambles.
The back page of the London Times is, that is why we need 5-day tests. Stokes dedicates win to father, then a tax plan to cut length of matches. A couple of other interesting stories here as well. You might have seen yesterday that Antonio Conte sacking cost Chelsea £26.6 million, himself and his staff. Finally getting their compensation. And Matt Lawton reporting that Nike shoes may beat both times. So World Athletics, this has been a story that's been rumbling on for a few years now, but they're now coming under increasing pressure to introduce strict rules. that kind of rule out technological advances made by Nike to stop people wearing the shoes, basically, that could allow inferior sprinters to break Usain Bolt's world record. So this is Nike's controversial Vaporfly shoe, which of course Eliud Kipchoge wore in his sub 2 hour marathon, but of course that was done under perfect conditions.
I'm really only interested in can they help beat the curse of middle-aged spread? Will they make me faster than Usain Bolt? That's all. I mean, if they are,
100%, yeah.
How much are they? Are they like, if they're any more than 50 quid, I'm not interested. But if they're like 45, 49.99, that's what you pay for a pair of trainers these days, isn't it?
Yeah, about that, I don't know.
We're going to take a quick break. We're going to be back with Andy Mitten. Here's what's coming up. Andy Mitten is next. Top 5 stories of the day coming your way at 8 o'clock. The latest on the FAI situation at 8:10. After that, we're going to have the first power rankings, the very first power rankings of the year. This is the 8th of January, so this is exactly what they're going to be pinning to the dressing room wall in every county that isn't in the top 5. And I would suspect even some of those top 5 counties are going to be pissed off that they're not number 2 or indeed number 1. And we'll have a debate about that too. Sports news coming your way at 8:35. Tadhg Kennelly. Full details of Tadhg Kennelly's interview with us coming at 8:45. Some really good stuff in this, including details of when he actually approached the AFL to pay compensation to the GAA for the players that they were taking, and we'll find out what happened when he did do that. Deal or no deal, the very latest in the transfer saga coming at 9:15. We are going to take a quick break here on OTBAM. We're back with Andy Mitten's thoughts on the big story of the day, which is Manchester United being absolutely pummeled at home by Manchester City for the very first time ever in Cup history.
OTB AM.
So, a little bit of history last night for Manchester City, as for the very first time in their history, they won a cup game at Old Trafford against Manchester United. Watching in the crowd were some of the grand poobahs of Manchester United, which must have made it all the more difficult that they were sitting just rows from the current hierarchy of the club. I'm delighted to say we've got Andy Mitten with us this morning to talk about what the fallout might be for Manchester United, for Ole Gunnar Solskjær, and perhaps finally for Ed Woodward as well. Andy, good morning to you. How are you doing this morning?
Well, it's not a good morning, but it is a morning. And I woke up thinking, did that really happen? And yes, it did happen. I thought it was dreadful. I thought Manchester United in the first half were appallingly bad. Manchester City were so far above Manchester United's level that it was as surprising as United winning at City last month. United improved in the second half, but City's record at Old Trafford is exceptionally good in the last 10 months. But as a United fan, it feels awful. It feels absolutely awful. And it's been a terrible start to 2020.
The picture of David Gill sitting in the crowd, the picture of Wayne Rooney sitting in the crowd alongside Ryan Giggs, this was not exactly what Manchester United needed to be reminded of last night. It was like, oh, this is what we used to be, and look at what we are now. What happened over the last 3 or 4 months that took away that level of hope that there was, that Solskjær was beginning to build something?
I'd say December was actually quite good. They played 9 times, they won 6 games, and they only lost 1 game, although it didn't feel good after the defeat walking away from Vicarage Road in Watford. That was another wretched performance. And when they're bad, they're really, really, really bad. And dropping points at home to Aston Villa, a Villa team who had the worst away record in the league. Watford had won 1 of the 17 games before they beat Manchester United, and I know they've picked up since, but still, you know, you can't just be pulling out these excuses. It's not good enough. It's not close to being good enough, and you're always going to get reminders of past greats. You had them after the team that dominated and won the European title, the European Cup in 1968. You still had greats going to games in the 70s and 80s. That's what happens at the biggest clubs, the most successful clubs. It's a positive and a negative that they sat there. We saw Sir Alex Ferguson sat in the crowd, and you'd love to know what he was thinking as well. And I know he's supportive of what Ole Gunnar Solskjær is trying to do. I think the fans have been very patient, very supportive, but there's got to be minimum levels as well. It's not unconditional, and nor is it the fault of one single person. The owners are not popular. Ed Woodward must take some responsibility because he's overseen poor recruitment. And if he talked, as he did to me when I interviewed him in October, about a new recruitment system, fans really need to start seeing the results of that pretty soon, because their support has been far more than can be expected. But when you get beat like that, and it wasn't just a defeat against City, it was an annihilation in that first half. And there's always mitigating circumstances. there are injuries, but the squad is light, and it went into the season light, and you've got very talented young players, but they're being asked to perform, not surrounded by world-class players like when the class of 92 came through, but surrounded by players who were underperforming themselves. And Manchester United have got the highest wage bill in the league. The owners can get stick, and not without reason as well, for what they take out of the club. But United have spent a lot of money on players who've really underperformed. So you've got to spread the blame across the board. There has to be an improvement. This season cannot finish like last season finished, where it just peters out into nothingness. I don't think they get away with that. I think the fans would turn with that. I think they've got to try and win a trophy. I think the League Cup would have been a success for this year, because they're not going to come close to winning the title, and that's been clear right throughout. There's the Europa League, there's the FA Cup, but when the team's so inconsistent, you wonder how they can win a cup.
Just on that recruitment point you make, Andy, Solskjær was speaking about that in the aftermath of the game, and he says, I've got the backing to do something, but if it isn't the right thing, we're not going to do that, obviously, he said. But it does suggest, that quote, that perhaps there hasn't been a plan put in place about what they are going to do in January, that perhaps there wasn't an awareness at the end of last summer that they needed to sign again in the next window and the window after that. Surely these windows should be planned ahead.
I think they do plan ahead. They think it's difficult to get players in January. Their point of view is that the best clubs don't want to sell the best players, which Manchester United should be competing for. In January, players don't want to step down from playing in the Champions League to play for a team in the Europa League. That's another price of a team that's failed to get into the Champions League. And I'm sure that they'll bring players in the summer, but needs must right now. The team needs strengthening. You can see that, especially with the injuries. And nobody counted on Paul Pogba not being able to play this season. He's the most talented player at the club, so that's another problem. And then you saw the defence last night, and Phil Jones, he was really, really poor. And I don't wish it on anyone. I don't like to see professional footballers and decent people struggling like that. And you can lace it with the ironies that formerly castigated players like Chris Smalling have gone to Italy and become the best player in the league there, and that just shows how battered their confidence can become at Old Trafford, where the pressure is really high. But I think they've got to strengthen. In January. The fans need a lift. However, they needed a lift when Juan Mata signed, when Alexis Sanchez signed. If they bring a player in, it's got to be the right player. But then agents are going to know that Manchester United are desperate because of the pressure brought on by the poor results. And you can throw onto the top of all this that City are the league champions and Liverpool are the European champions. It is an unholy mess for Manchester United.
That point on the confidence of the players and Chris Smalling is interesting, because, I don't know, there seems to be a growing annoyance almost among some Manchester United fans that Solskjær is always so positive in the aftermath of these defeats, like talking about how well they performed at times in the second half was his tone in the press conference last night. But at the same time then, it's your argument that perhaps you can't afford to be too negative as Manchester United boss, because there's already all this pressure on the players.
Well, look what happened when Jose Mourinho wasn't positive. That then leads on to the point where the media look for a reaction from the people who's been criticised. So, say if he criticised Luke Shaw, as he did and Lou Van Gaal did, then they look for a reaction from the Shaw camp, and they come out to say, well, they're not happy with what's happening, and that creates more side issues. From what I understand, and I know what's going on in some aspects behind the scenes, Ole Gunnar is far from positive in the dressing room. He puts on a positive face publicly for several reasons. One, because he knows the confidence of his players is fragile. Two, he's not going to talk down the value of players. He's not going to say what he really thinks on some players, because that strengthens their position massively when it comes to leaving the club and talks down their transfer fee. So I can see why he's doing that, and I'm more concerned that while United can look so good against some of the best teams under Solskjær, that they're incapable of beating some of the worst teams. The fans have been patient. I actually quite like the idea of what he's trying to do. I get that it's going to take time. I get that there's going to be bumps along the way, and there are big bumps. But when you go in 3-0 down against City, having been in the job for over a year, you're going to get criticised for that, and with good reason. It's just not good enough.
It's obviously not good enough, but is there Is this a sign? Is this a staging post along the way? Is this just a bump, or because last night was so humiliating, because it was against Man City, because it was a moment of history for them? Does that tempt Ed Woodward to make a decision? Does that speed or spur him on to make a decision, or the owners to make a decision and go, okay, well, we've got this wrong, let's go again?
Well, what happens the next time? Who's going to come in and change it? The next manager's going to come in and say exactly the same as the previous 4 managers have come in. This isn't my squad. This is going to take time to rebuild. And David Moyes was doing that 3 weeks after arriving, saying there needs to be a serious rebuild here. And at the time I was thinking, why? They've just won the league. And maybe he had a point. He probably did have a point. And Louis van Gaal said the same thing. And the fans go along with the new manager at the time. Great, he's getting rid of all the deadwood. This is the man that we need. And when the results don't come, and the competition's much stronger, that has got to be said. Every Premier League team now is far, far better resourced than they were in the 90s and the noughties. United can no longer go to Leicester, let alone Tottenham Hotspur, and get their best players like they used to be able to do, because they just don't need to sell because they've got so much money. But it's still Manchester United. They're still a giant of world football. They're one of the 3 biggest teams in the world. They will come right again one day, but that day doesn't seem to be getting any closer at the moment, and there has to be minimum requirements. And when you get results like last night, it just whacks the confidence of the fans.
Yeah, that's the thing. This is a vicious circle that he's in at the moment, where the confidence of the team is so fragile that after the first goal goes in, there's no way that they can get themselves back. The fans feed off that, and his own confidence has got to be shot as well. So I guess I agree with you, right? The next manager who comes in is going to do exactly the same thing as the previous managers, but somebody might be better experienced. Somebody might have a better grip on what the best way to build your recruitment system actually is. Somebody might have experience of managing a club of Manchester United's size, and that might be something which tempts the ownership. I guess that's the question. It might not be the right thing to do, but that hasn't stopped Ed Woodward from making bad decisions in the past. Is he more likely to make a knee-jerk reaction on the back of a result like this, given that it is against Man City?
I don't think he will make a knee-jerk reaction. I think that he would get that much stick and have to preach in patience, and I don't think he will. And also, the grass isn't always greener with other managers. I get the point that someone might come in and be a better manager. If Pep Guardiola took over tomorrow, he might have more tactical acumen, well, he would have, than Ole Gunnar Solskjær and his team. But United have gone down what they thought was the Fergie clone with Moyes. They've gone down the Van Gaal route, proven international winner. They've gone down the route of the guaranteed winner, Jose Mourinho, and none of them have really worked. There were highlights at times with all of them, but they've all lost the job after two and a half years. And Ole Gunnar Solskjær might lose his job after two and a half years. He might lose his job after 1.5 years, but it seems a big setback if they're bringing someone else in to start the whole process again. I don't think there'll be a knee-jerk reaction, but there's got to be minimum requirements before the end of this season. He's not been in the job now for 2 weeks. He's been in the job for over a year, and the end of last season was atrocious. There just cannot be a repeat of that. There needs to be some hope. The fans have got to see some sign of improvement, even though they know it's going to take time. Yeah,
and there's obviously a second leg to come, so it could get much worse as well. Andy, any sense of there being any activity over this window, even a squad player, somebody to bolster the squad or change the tone a bit?
You say it could get worse, it could get better. This is the madly frustrating thing about Manchester United. Just when you think they're about to go under, they pull out a really good result. I can remember speaking to you on the morning of the Tottenham game a month ago, and they played superbly well and won that, and then they beat Manchester City. I don't think they're going to go through out of this tie. But I went to Paris in March and didn't think they were going through either. I've seen this happening, and most of them are not good under this Manchester United team. As for other players, there's speculation, but nothing beyond that. But I do think the squad needs strengthening. I think someone should be brought in January, not only to strengthen the squad, but also to lift the spirits among the supporters, because plenty of them are starting to lose faith. Yeah,
Andy, good stuff. Thanks a million for joining us under difficult circumstances for you this morning as a Man United fan. Cheers, man.
Thank you.
That's Andy Mitten there giving us some thoughts. If you want to get involved, you can use the hashtag OTBAM. We'll be right back after this.
OTBAM. AM on OTB Sports Radio, Ireland's first and only sports radio station.
Off the Ball 2019 IMRO Radio Awards Sports Programme of the Year.
Salah takes the shot. Oh, Mo Salah with one of the goals of the season.
Who will see their dreams turn into reality? Whose names will be etched in history forever?
Offtheball.com, best online publisher at the 2019 Spider Awards.
A big breaking story on offtheball.com for you this morning. We have the very latest on the Mayo leaks. We now know what went on in that secretive Mayo County Board meeting.
2019 Irish Sponsorship Awards Best Radio Sponsorship, OTB Super Value GAA Roadshows.
Well, when she comes back, get your arse back here, he said. Starr is out sitting on the swing and Darren O'Sullivan is pushing him.
OTB Sports Radio, live online 24/7 on the Go Loud app.
This is OTB Sports Radio. OTB AM.
Yeah, you're very welcome back. If you're a Man United fan suffering this morning, please share your suffering with us. We want to taste the salt of your tears. Use the hashtag OTBAM and we'll bring to air. Loads of comments coming in. We'll get to them in a couple of minutes. Here's the top 5 stories that we're covering this morning. The very latest in the FAI. We're bringing some details that we're getting from various newspapers about who the independent executive directors and potentially the new independent chair of the FAI may be. The very latest on the Cathal McShane story, which we've been talking about for the last 24 hours. Essentially, Tadhg Kennelly is going to talk to us a little bit later on about what McShane might face down under and a bit of the fallout from Mickey Harte's comments last week's Irish Rugby Hope. A New Hope rises. What's the name of the crappy Star Wars movie? A New Dawn?
New Hope?
A New Hope, is that it?
Is that not like considered to be the best one?
Were any of them that good, really?
It's I will happily sit in the studio and defend the prequels all I want. I didn't really think you'd have a go at the original series.
We've got 4 and 5 points for you as well. Glen Whelan and Stephen Cluxton. Are they the same age? Is Cluxton like a bit younger than Glen Whelan? It feels it like it sometimes, doesn't it? Anyway, the way they move. No, I'm not. I'm really joking. I know Glen Whelan is a good 3 or 4 years younger than him. Cluxton's in the papers today because Tommy Carr is predicting that Cluxton is going to stay. You can give us your thoughts on that. And Glen Whelan is in the papers today with some dynamite quotes about the Hearts manager being a bit of an a-hole, really.
Well, if you're going to sack somebody, don't do it on Christmas Day. Don't kick somebody out of the club on Christmas Day.
9:10. It was like they deleted him from the WhatsApp group. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about the FAI scenario. So the FAI story, it comes in waves. It goes quiet for 2 or 3 days. You think, okay, obviously something is happening behind the scenes, and then little bits and pieces drift out. Yesterday we had Stephen McGuinness, the General Secretary of the PFAI, so that's the players' union here, the professional players' union, on the show, and he was saying that they actually had a very positive meeting with Shane Ross, and he certainly got the impression that a deal was being done in the background. Philip Quinn wrote yesterday that a deal was being done. The political reporters were like, there's no possibility of a deal being done until there's an independent, the 4 independent directors and a new independent chair. But then it emerges today on the front of the Irish Times that a new independent chair is being lined up, and it's somebody from the world of finance. It's the chief executive of Goodbody Stockbrokers. So Roy Barrett is the managing director of Goodbody Stockbrokers. Jack Horgan-Jones has this story. It says he's publicity shy, which obviously, the new independent chair probably needs to have a profile which will be one that will calm everything, which will appeal to sponsors, which will give government confidence that the money that they are guaranteeing will be repaid, and which will give the grassroots a sense that there's a steady hand at the till. So it can't be a position that is completely in the background, although that's what you want.
Yeah.
You want it to be relatively high profile, a few key interviews done, a few key announcements being made, and then disappear.
Not a celebrity.
Do your work in the background. His candidature is thought to enjoy strong political support given his financial acumen and the scale of the funding challenge facing the FAI. And he has previously supported former Republic of Ireland striker Niall Quinn's ideas for reforming the association and was named in the document produced by the reform group chaired by Quinn last year, but has no links to the FAI. So fits the bill on every level. The Star, Mark McAdams, reporting that Sarah Keane is in line for a role in the FAI as well. This would be great. Both of these appointments would be stuff that you go, okay, know nothing about the guy from the stockbrokers, but at least it is somebody who you're thinking, okay, this person interacts at a high level where corporate governance is hugely important, where all of the rigours of auditing and finance and the law and regulations are something that you have a strong sense of. That's exactly what a sports organisation needs at the top to make sure that any of the monies, particularly public money, and in this instance it looks like a lot of public money is going to be guaranteeing what's going on. And then Sarah Keane has been involved in 2 turnarounds in sports organisations, so kind of gets exactly what the culture change needs to be. The other 2, it's going to be very interesting to see who they are. Gary Keegan kept getting mentioned in dispatches. It'd be great to see him involved. He basically invented high performance in Irish sport through the boxing programme, and after that, I don't know, you begin to see some green shoots here.
For sure, and I kind of like the combination of people that they have here. You have somebody with huge experience in finance, but who also obviously has a keen interest in football. He's kind of, I think he's put down as a football man by Jack Horgan-Jones in the paper today, and then that's obviously key. And then you obviously have Sarah Keane, who has a huge amount of experience in governance in sporting bodies, and with sporting bodies that needed to be fixed. So straight away you've got 2 characters there, and through their experience you've got a great combination there. You throw in someone like Gary Keegan into the mix, coming from a different point of view as well. Now granted, he's not being reported in the papers this morning, and perhaps as an independent director of an organisation like the FAI, his experience perhaps would be better served elsewhere. I don't know, I could be wrong. Maybe he could be very well set to be one of the top 4 dogs in the FAI for the next few months. But straight away you're kind of starting to see the thought process behind this, and the different sort of backgrounds people need, and that is the kind of breadth of the issues facing the FAI.
Yeah, and one other thing, Steve McGuinness said that he did respect the work that was going on at the moment from the current board, because obviously now that Conway is gone, it is an entirely new board, although it has come from the gene pool of the FAI. Like, if you think about it, a sport needs to be self-governing and self-policing, and you definitely need people who have come up through the ranks, who have worked as underage coaches or who have worked as officials in League of Ireland clubs, who are involved in the running of the sport, because they know exactly what's going on. You can't just have a bunch of people come in and go, well, why are you doing it this way, lads? It's like, well, this is how it has been. But there's a big chance for the FAI to hit the reset button and to change those structures so that there's a bit of new blood coming through while retaining some aspects of it. So the schoolboys should have some representation, because it's an important aspect of it. The League of Ireland should have some, the professional group, the professional playing group should also, as a stakeholders, and they should be electing some elements of the board, but not all of it, and not the entire thing, because you definitely need some outside. So here's the question, right? What will the GAA and the IRFU think about the fact that public money is going to be either guaranteeing or used to prop up this organisation? Are they backdooring round to Marion Street and the government and saying, right lads, come on, show us the colour of your money here?
Well, I was actually kind of thinking the opposite way. I was kind of putting a more positive spin on it in my own head about what this does for sport as a whole. So you've got a case study now, and let's pretend that in 5 years down the line we're talking about the FAI as an organisation that was saved, and that there was great governance done required when it was badly needed, when their backs were up against the wall. And that suddenly becomes a new case study in our sport as to how to pull the wreckage from the water and turn it into a relatively stable ship. Like every other organisation should be able to learn from that case. I'm not for 1 second suggesting that that's a banker, that this is going to happen, or that things are going to be saved. But I would have thought that if any other organisation is concerned about its own governance, that they could perhaps look at what will become of the FAI, hopefully, if things get to be turned around. And that's a very positive spin on it. The negative spin on it, of course, is perhaps, as you say there, money being funded by the taxpayer into the FAI. I guess the IRFU and the GAA need to be thankful that they're not in a similar position.
No, they'll be like, give us the money.
Like that's
how that works. But whenever Tala was being built, whenever the Tala Stadium was being built, the GAA club ended up getting some money from the government as well, because they were like, oh, hang on a second, what you're doing here is you're funding one of our rivals for the hearts and minds of people in the locality. And maybe that's right, maybe that's wrong. There's certainly, you can make the case on both sides.
Well, you can also make the case that this is an organisation that needs to be saved, and that is why the money is being pumped in there. The money is not being pumped into the FAI now to win the hearts and minds of youngsters and taking people away from the IRFU and the GAA.
I quote to you the parable of the prodigal son. The brother who stayed at home, minded the farm, put his hand up the cow's arse when she was calving, pulled it out, got covered in the blood and guts, They killed that fatted calf for the guy who went off partying and having a good time.
Yeah.
Which son do you want to be?
Like, I mean...
Which son do you want to be, Owen?
Calving is a very important role. And
yes.
And I'm sure he... Like,
yeah, somebody has to do it, but not... fun.
I'm sure he had a fulfilled life as a result of bringing new life into
the world. But he didn't, is the thing. He got jealous.
So you're saying that the GAA and the RFU are currently waking up in the middle of the night, going down to a cow that needs to be calved, and helping out while the FAI has been out and about partying. Well, there's no question about that. We all partied in the FAI for a certain amount of time, and now it is being saved. And I'm sure everybody has to be po-faced and said that people will behave, and I'm sure that will be the case. So over the next few years. So I can see the point you're trying to make.
The prodigal son was never a parable that sat that easily with me. I was like, so all you got to do is at the end go and say you're sorry. I'm sorry, and that's it's a Catholic thing, isn't it? You can repent your sins on your deathbed and be like, oh, what a life I had. But Jesus, at the very end, I'm really sorry about all that. I mean, honestly, I am. Now that I'm dying, I'm very, very sorry about the crack that I had,
And was it only until...
all the money that I spent it in good company.
Like, it took until, the very last days of 2019 for the FAI to apologise eventually? Was it at that point you were like, that's the parable, come full circle at long last?
It's just today. I'm like, well, will the other sports organisations who are well run, who have corporate governance...
What do you think? Like, do you think they will kick up a fuss now? And
not publicly at all.
Oh,
but I certainly think
privately.
Of course. That's how life works. That's how lobbying works. That's how government works. It's like, okay, so you've suddenly found all this extra money. Now, if you're, it's going to be very interesting to see how the finances out of all this actually work. Are the government literally putting money in, or are they just acting as a guarantor? So. The FAI ends up doing a deal with the banks to get loads of money from the bank, and the government is the guarantor. So technically, there is public money locked away to make sure that is at some point that if that bill ever falls due, it'll be paid. That's not the same as actually putting money in. And if that's the way that this is happening, that would be me and the government saying, we're not putting any money in, we're just acting as guarantor for them on the bank. If you ever need to build a new massive stadium, we'll talk to you about that. Or if you have a big infrastructure project that you need some help with, then we'll be happy to act as guarantor. However, I'm looking at your balance sheet there, lads, and it looks very healthy from this perspective. So, if you want some more day-to-day expenditure, we can talk about that, but you're not getting any at the minute.
But we're moving on. And just a final point on that. Is this not the time then for the GAA to implement their big project plan, or the RFU to implement their big project plan, because now's the time when the government might put their hands in their pocket?
Well, it's funny you say that. Isn't the RDS up for redevelopment? Isn't that one of the big major infrastructure projects that is about to be greenlit? And I would be amazed if that project is not greenlit in advance of the next election, because there's a big swathe of voters in South County Dublin who will be like, oh yeah, new RDS. It looks and the plans for the RDS look absolutely amazing. So that's one of them. It's not necessarily just an IRFU thing, but obviously they'll benefit from it because it's mainly Leinster and obviously the owners of the RDS who will benefit from that. And then I don't know, maybe the GAA, the Dubs, were talking about building something out around Park West.
Why is everything in Dublin? I mean, the RFU is a nationwide body. The GAA is a nationwide body. Share a bit of the love.
I mean, hit me up with your major infrastructural projects that are happening, that are in the pipeline.
They need a new Jackson Fitzgerald Stadium.
Well, I mean, look, every GAA ground that I've been to in the last 10 years could do with. Anyway, let's move on. Right, 8:14 this morning here on OTBAM. Yesterday morning, after OTBAM aired, we spoke with Sydney Swans assistant coach Tadhg Kennelly. Really interesting chat on the AFL's relationship with the GAA, Cathal McShane's future and life in Australia right now. All of the quotes have been lifted in the papers today, by the way, so you don't need to check them out in the papers. You can get it right here on OTBAM, or you can listen to the podcast on Go Loud. The full interview is coming your way exclusively here on OTBAM at 8:40 this morning. But yesterday we released a snippet from the interview as Kennelly revealed that McShane actually can't play in the AFL in the year 2020. Have a look.
When it is an all-star player getting an opportunity, obviously there's going to be a lot of media publicity about it. And the other fact that we call is AFL list lodgements. I'm an assistant coach of the Swans now at the minute. AFL list, which is basically your playing list, their final list has been lodged for the 2020 season. So he can't play this year. So he'll be playing with Tyrone in the Championship this year. He can come out in July if he does get the mid-season draft, which is highly unlikely for an international player. Generally, a mid-season draft in the AFL is for a club that's had a number of injuries in a position where they can actually go to a lower league like the VFL or the Waffle in Western Australia, whatever, and pick up a player and put him straight onto the list so they can fill a spot where they've had injuries during the season. So he can't play this season, so he'll be playing for Tyrone in the Championship.
Can you just clarify that? Because I don't think anybody realised that. I think that everybody assumed that this would happen straight away. He can't go. Could he go out on a developmental contract and not play and play second tier, or is there?
He can't. No, if he's going to be on the list. And if he doesn't play, if he's not on the list and he plays with a second-tier team, he doesn't qualify as an international rookie, which means he's got to go into the draft next year. So he can't play AFL this year unless, like I said, he gets into a mid-season draft in the middle of the year, which is highly unlikely for an international player, and that's in July.
Yeah, full piece coming up with Tadhg Kennelly later. But as you can see, the power rankings are back. I've heard you missed me. They are the full, completely correct power rankings that nobody can argue against.
Can we boo at the start?
Can we get a bit of booing from the crowd? There we go. We're going from 32 all the way through to 1 pre-season rankings. New York not in it because they don't play in the league. Kilkenny not in it because they just can't be bothered fielding a football team. So let's do that for the future. So there's no shame about London being in there at number 32. Limerick at 31, Wicklow at 30, Waterford at 29, and Paul Galvin's Wexford at 28. Great footballer, great fashion designer. Will he be a great manager? Sligo on 27. The only team, I think, to lose every single game in 2019, including the pre-season competition, the FBD League. Antrim at 26. Carlow rising no more as a result of their poor 2019. New players back. They could be going higher up the list next year. They're in at number 25. At 24, it's Leitrim. Every single person, 99% of the population by all accounts, travelled to Croke Park to see them get promoted to Division 3 last year. John Mahon's Offaly at 23, Tipperary at 22, and I predicted they could be going down a little bit further this year. Michael Quinlivan gone from the squad, gone travelling for the year. Louth in the 21, a potential big riser this year. Kieran Byrne back from the AFL. Derry at 20, Longford at 19, Down at 18, and Westmeath at 17, which brings us on to Mike Quirke's Laois at number 16. Great year for them last year. Can the new boss, another Kerry man, bring them up further again? Clare again, another side with a pretty good 2019. Lost to Meath in round 4 of the qualifiers. They're at number 15. Jack O'Connor's Kildare at 14. Armagh at number 13. One of the contentious ones here, potentially. A lot of Armagh people complaining that they weren't up higher last year. Cavan in at number 12. We had Killian Clark in studio yesterday. They've, of course, lost one of their key players. While Cork in at number 11. Now, these, of course, are the most correct power rankings that have ever existed, that have ever been known to mankind. Personally, though, if I was to give personal opinion, I think Cork should be higher. But you can only say what the correct thing is.
They're your rankings.
Fermanagh in at number 10. They had a poor championship last year, but they got a pretty bad draw. Monaghan in at number 9, also with a poor championship, but they will be back. I guarantee you that. Meath, the eternal complainers of 2019. Their actual Twitter account with a blue tick was complaining about these power rankings last year. There you are. Are you happy now? You're in the top 8. Prove it. Welcome to Division 1. Welcome to the big boys game. Let's see how long you survive. Galway in at number 7. Padraig Joyce says he wants to win everything. He wants to win the All-Ireland. So expect big rises from them in the year 2020. Roscommon in at number 6. Tyrone in at number 5. I may have picked these rankings before Tadhg Kennelly informed us that Cathal McShane will be able to play for Tyrone this year, which is why I've gone for Mayo ahead of them for the time being anyway. In at number 4, Kieran MacDonald, the new coach. Donegal in at number 3. They haven't made an All-Ireland final since 2014. They'll need to get back there. And they haven't made an All-Ireland semi-final since 2014. What am I talking about? So people might have a bit of suspicion about them being in the top 4. I do genuinely believe they are in the number 3 team in Ireland. Kerry, All-Ireland runners-up last year in at number 2. And Dublin in at number 1 because nothing has changed. They've just got a new manager. Stephen Cluxton still plays football.
Right, just pick up that Dublin jersey and stick it on you there, will you? Because you're with your power rankings. Right, here, we're going to recap them. So, number 33 is Kilkenny, off-piste. Number 32 is London. 31, Limerick. 30, Wicklow. 29, Waterford. Wexford, 28. Sligo, 27. Antrim, 26. Carlow, 25. Next one, it starts to get a little bit contentious from around 20 onwards here. Leitrim, 24. Offaly, 23. I think Offaly are going to rise this year. Tip, 22. Louth, 21. Derry are 20. Which I know, understandably, the 20th best team in the country is Derry. Longford 19, Down 18. Westmeath are 17. Why are Westmeath 17?
Because they're the 17th best team in the country, obviously.
Laois are 16, Clare are 15, Kildare are 14, Armagh are 13, Cavan are 12, Cork are 11, Fermanagh are 10, Monaghan are 9. That's all gelatinous gloop of nonsense. And then the power rankings from 8 to 1, Meath 8, Galway 7, Roscommon 6, Tyrone 5, Mayo 4, Donegal 3, Kerry 2 and Dublin 1. Let's just establish once and for all base camp for the rest of the year. We're here on the 8th of January. What are these power rankings on?
They are the best teams in the country in order of the current teams that are better than one another.
So today, this is the order in which these teams...
Pre-season, yeah.
And in mid-season and every week, every time we update these. So we'll update these again just before the league starts.
That's why I said that thing earlier on about Cork. I think that they are potentially better than where they're at the moment, but based on the results and based on being a Division 3 team, that's why they have a perceived lowly ranking.
Cork are 11th.
11th, yeah. So it's a cocktail of things because life isn't simple.
Scoring 6-27 against Kerry last week didn't influence your opinion against the Kerry under-21s.
They're a Division 3 team, you know, so a lot of people would say that they shouldn't be in the top 16. So this is the nuance that the Power Rankings provides.
Okay, a few points before we get to the main stuff. I think Offaly are going to be a good team this year. I think that year 2, I think they have their superstar kid who is fully available, is going to play the whole thing, and I think they're going to be decent. I think you were right about Tipperary. You mentioned are going to have a difficult year. I think Derry at 20, it's going to be interesting to see what happens with Derry this year. I think Derry have a new manager who understands exactly how to play defensive football and get some scores and win matches in Ulster. So again, a team we have to keep an eye on in terms of what happens in the league to see if they're actually going to be able to play for Sam Maguire. You're not in any way interested in what Jack O'Connor's going to be doing in Kildare? I'm
not interested right now until I see what's going to happen. I think the more important thing for Kildare is Daniel Flynn coming back into the mix, and I think that they will be in the mix for a top 8 for a Super 8's position come the end of the year.
Yeah, I like...
Kildare at 14 isn't a bad place after
in your power rankings, a team in one position should beat a team in the lower position, right?
You would expect so, but there also has to be a little bit of room for manoeuvre in terms of what they've already shown.
Kildare would beat Fermanagh if they played today, in a big game, in a one-off game. Kildare would beat Fermanagh.
You think one player would change? Because on last year's evidence, not a chance. Well, okay, there is a chance. Obviously, they're the same division, but if that game happened.
In a championship
at the end
match.
of the championship last year, Fermanagh would have beaten Kildare.
No way.
So they've got a new manager, fair enough, accept that, and Daniel Flynn,
let me say, right, so this is going to sound a little bit anachronistic, but in the league, we're not going to take into account, like, you can still be a better team. You can lose a match in the league and still be a better team. So if somebody beats Dublin in the league, they're not automatically a better team than them, right?
Precisely.
However, in the championship, if one team beats the other, that's the very definition of what the power ranking should be. If these teams played in the championship match today, if these teams played in the championship, this is the order of where they would finish.
Yeah.
Right. That's our definition, and we're going to stick with that for the rest of the year. Kildare would beat a load of the teams who are ahead of them. And I think... I think they beat Roscommon.
You think Kildare beat Roscommon? You're putting that on the record right now?
I think Kildare beat Roscommon. I think Roscommon are vastly overvalued with their place in the top 6.
And we'll see.
The 6th best team in the country at the minute. You're saying Roscommon would beat...
They're Connacht champions.
Everybody below them. The Connacht Championship. How important has that been? How often has that been a stepping stone to All-Ireland glory or a place in an All-Ireland final?
Like, I mean, you talk about Mayo's woes through the back door over the last couple of years, the lackage of a good...
Them being better through the back door than they are when they go through the front door.
And that's
Galway's last All-Ireland win came through the back door. The first year
qualifiers.
Yeah. Like, I'm sorry, but
you see,
come back to me with your...
But this is my point.
Championship.
That there has to be some sort of room for manoeuvre in terms of past achievements. You can't just discount Roscommon winning a Connacht Championship based on the fact that, Kildare look good because they've got Daniel Flynn back.
I'm saying
let me see the evidence. Let me see the actual season evidence of Kildare being good. And you know what? I'll be happy for you. I'll be happy for everybody in Kildare. Newbridge or Nowhere proved that weird week wasn't just a fluke, and that's the thing that every modern Kildare
been a while now.
fan pins their hat on because they got a game played in their own back door.
That wasn't last year.
Great to be a Kildare fan. Exactly, it was the year before last year. So congratulations to you on all your successes as a Kildare fan so far.
I'm just laying down.
You managed to be a part of the Super 8s for one season.
I think that there's a few imposters in your top 8. I think I'm going to be interested to see exactly how Meath performed this year.
I'm all on the bandwagon about Meath being whinging about their position in the power rankings last year. Oh, Armagh ahead of us in the power rankings. When whatever they kicked a score and a half against Dublin in the Leinster final. Admittedly managed to make it into the Super 8s, but they obviously got spanked in every single game. So if this is their season, being in the top 8 of the power rankings, then and this is where their lives peak as sports fans, then good for them, because there was a lot of whinging from Meath last year, including from our own box there.
Yeah.
You'll see in Navan it says Tommy Rooney. And
some more whinging coming from the box. Quick question: has Owen just completely forgotten about the fact that 60 footballers have stepped away from the game of Gaelic football in 2020? Surely that should have an impact on the order of where we're at right now. Sean Quigley left Fermanagh. They should be lower. Fermanagh are at 10.
Yeah.
Fermanagh are in the top 10 teams in the country.
Almost snuck promotion to Division 1 last year.
What did they do in the championship? They lost both games.
But look at the draw in the championship.
I mean, come on. Look at the draw. That's the draw. You were
the one sitting here in studio yesterday saying that the championship is skewed. This is the reason why we have the power rankings, Ger, to actually tell people in a fair world, in an ideal world, when teams are at their peak and playing against each other, this is where the cards shall fall. Because the championship is skewed, the cards didn't fall in Fermanagh's favour last year. 2 Division 1 teams, they got beaten by both, and that was their summer done.
Top 10 team. They're a top 10 team right now?
Yeah.
You've got them ahead of Cork. They beat Cork in a game?
Yes. Yes.
Really? This current Cork team? I mean, look...
Now, here's the caveat I will say. So you often get me into
Red Storm Rising. I often get you into what?
You often throw me into a difficult position here about what the actual correct rankings are versus what way I think trends will develop. Now, I can't put in future trends here, but I think the future trend of this summer will be that Cork will build on their success of last year.
Okay.
They start the year in Division 3.
I'm going to give you some homework.
Fermanagh start the year after almost getting promoted to Division 1
I'm going to give you some
year.
homework. So we're doing our predictions on Friday, right?
Yeah, Crystal Ball is coming your way Friday.
Crystal Ball is coming your way on Friday. On Friday, I want you to predict what the power rankings will look like at the end of the All-Ireland football final next year.
Okay,
not just an All-Ireland final winner, right?
Let's do it.
Right?
Let's do it, yeah.
Is that fair? That's a legitimate, right?
For sure. Well, okay, we can...
Because I'm saying that Cork are going to be in the top 8, I'm saying Kildare are going to be in the top 8, and I'm saying Roscommon are going to go from that, and I'm saying I don't know who else yet.
Well, it's easy to...
Maybe Meath, and I think Donegal, Jesus, they've got to do something.
They're
number 3 in your list.
Yes, because they're the third best team in the country, quite clearly the third best team in the country.
Are they that far ahead of Tyrone?
Yes. Okay, that far, no is the answer. If you want to base it on the evidence of a championship match, the most recent championship evidence we have last year, they're pretty good against Tyrone last year. I don't know. They won Ulster last year. Well, what more evidence can I put on your plate? They got beaten by Mayo and Castlebar, deservedly so. And Mayo at that point in the year looked like they might go on this strange Mayo run again straight to an All-Ireland final, and then Dublin hammered them. And that's not a fair gauge to judge Mayo by either. But I just think on the evidence last year, they're going to have Owen Baugh Gallagher back hopefully for the actual meaningful part of the season this summer, and that might actually be enough to skew a result one way or the other. But I agree with you on that point, that it is time for Donegal to prove that they are the third best team in the country. At least get it to a semi-final.
Tyrone are 5th.
Yes. Now, okay, I did think Cathal McShane was going to Australia for the season.
But
that does change things. Immediately, the power ranking. These are always live. This is a live organism. What we're looking at here on the screen.
We're bringing you the full interview with Tadhg Kennelly in a couple of minutes' time. He says that he won't be able to play in the AFL. Does that mean that if you're an AFL team, do you bring him over and have him train with you for the whole year and be in training, and then next year?
Let's go with that assumption.
Officially, or do you say, look, go off and have your last season with Tyrone? I don't know. I don't know if he's going to play or not.
He's that good. He's the difference between the number 5 and the number 4 there.
So, him not playing...
These power rankings are under the assumption that Cathal McShane will not be playing for Tyrone this year. If he is playing for them, I think they beat Mayo in a championship match. If he is not playing, Mayo beat them.
If he's not playing, if he's not playing, should they not be 7th?
No.
So they're going to beat Galway without Cathal McShane?
Yes.
Do they have enough forwards?
Not to win an All-Ireland, but to beat Galway,
Matty Donnelly?
they possibly do.
Matty Donnelly is walking around and his leg is in it's kind of in one of those things. It's encased to make sure it doesn't move. That's the hamstring off the bone injury that Paul O'Connell obviously suffered. That it's very difficult to come back from, and he'll take time to get back to the level that we know he's at.
Well, he was at a pretty good level at times last year, Matty Donnelly, and I thought he was
excellent.
Yeah,
and like he's an excellent footballer, so they're not going to have him at his full strength until the very end of the championship, you would suspect.
And that is the time when you would expect them to play a team like Galway would be in the Super 8s, and without Cathal McShane, I think Tyrone edged that game, and it might be just to do with the grit and the experience that they have of being All-Ireland finalists 2 years ago, which Galway...
I think the Galway question is that they're so flaky. That's the issue. They've been so flaky, and they have a new manager who has to come in and kill the flakiness.
But I like what I'm hearing. I like what I'm hearing from Pádraig Joyce. He's saying it will be a failure of a year if we don't win the All-Ireland.
Well, look, I mean, I think I
used the word failure.
I heard that conversation he had with Joe. He was like, "Look, of course our ambition is to win the All-Ireland, but we're not stupid." Like that was the implication. It was like, we understand that everybody has to set out with the aim. Otherwise, you've built in failure immediately. If you're Kildare and Meath, it's not realistic to say we're going to win the All-Ireland, but you have to say it. You have to cheat your brain to go, we're going to go out there and we're going to beat the Dubs because we'll catch them on the bad day. We'll be the ones who get them on the bad day. My contention here is that at the minute, without Jim Gavin, and without knowing that Cluxton is coming back, that Kerry are the team who are going to win the All-Ireland this year. I'm literally backing Kerry to win the All-Ireland this year. I think this is the point. 5 in a row is such a big deal. This has all the hallmarks of a letdown year for Dublin. And if Dessie Farrell can win an All-Ireland this year, it'll be unbelievable.
It won't be though, because he's got the best team in the country.
But how far ahead?
Won 5 in a row.
How
the
far
best team ever.
How far ahead of Kerry are they?
None of the players that matter have actually retired. Like Bernard Brogan retired. He used to matter.
Cluxton has not come back yet.
He's on holidays.
I don't know if he's going to come back.
If Cluxton doesn't come back, then we start to rethink things. But like we can't just speculate. These power rankings are based on concrete information, Ger. We can't just have flimsy arguments around.
I'm predicting Kerry going to win the All-Ireland. That's my prediction. And Kerry should be number one. Kerry are going to beat Dublin in the first round of the league. Isn't that game's in Croker?
Croke Park, 25th of January.
Looking forward to that.
Kerry are on holidays as well, though.
3 weeks, yeah, but they've been doing training sessions, according to Digger on Twitter.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay, I wasn't privy to that information.
Right. Lads, is there a better way to start your day than listen to a Manchester United fan in such despair, says Kieran Riley. Happy Wednesday. There's a lot of schadenfreude going around from the fans of every other team, it seems. The Anyone But United group have been waiting a long, long time to be sticking the dagger into the cold, dead heart of Manchester United. And I think this is rock bottom. I actually think there's a possibility they get absolutely annihilated 4 or 5-0 in the return leg. Phil Jones and Jesse Lingard are abysmal. Why on earth was Smalling let go on loan while Jones was kept? Jones constantly breaks the first rule of defending. Don't dive in. Sign a couple of midfielders, pip Chelsea to 4th and have a good crack at the Europa League. Pretty obvious. Sadly, they won't sign anyone and will struggle.
Well, they're only 5 points off 4th spot, which is Chelsea, who've shown their own element of flakiness this season.
Yeah. And Diego Simeone, no chance. More chance of Ryan Giggs being United manager after Ole Gunnar Solskjær, as Pochettino will be the City manager next season. This could be the end of days for Pep as well.
And
I don't think it's going to be, though. It doesn't have the hallmark. He's not as haunted. He looked quite relaxed compared to how he looked at the end of... And the end of the Bayern Munich thing was announced fairly early.
Yeah.
And they hated him. They didn't hate him, but there was certainly... The old guard weren't mad keen on him. So
he wants to go win the league next season and then perhaps walk away, I'd imagine. Although, what if he wins the Champions League? What a way to go out as City boss. It has been the thing that this money was pumped in to win. It is their singular focus.
Absolutely. 8:34 this morning here on OTBAM. If you've just joined us, you missed a good show, but you can catch it all back on podcast, which is available for you on the Go Loud app or indeed wherever you get your podcasts, offtheball.com/podcasts. Now, the Boston Globe's Tara Sullivan joined Joe Malloy last night on Off the Ball. Here she is talking about the prospect of Tom Brady playing for another franchise next season.
It's not an easy place to put yourself inside Tom Brady's head. He's not one to share a lot of those innermost thoughts. I agree with you. It would be so strange to see him in another uniform, and it would seem so strange for him to even want to do that. But I think there is some small element between him and the coach Bill Belichick. There's always been this debate about which one is more responsible for all the success. And so I think there's a little bit of, hey, maybe I can go prove that I'm the reason. If I go and succeed somewhere else, I look like the reason that we had all the success. And the same from Belichick's perspective. hey, I'm ready to move on from a 42-year-old quarterback who's going to cost me $25 million to have him play one more year, where I'd rather use that money on other players. And I'm the reason that, that I can show you I can win with somebody else. So there's a little bit of that at play. However, the owner, Robert Kraft, has been very, very clear that he really wants Brady to retire, only having played for the Patriots. So there really are a ton of elements at work.
Yeah, it's great Shakespearean drama unfolding in Foxborough. I don't know how many people out there are American football fans, but I think everybody can get behind the whole notion of a three-way power struggle where the owner, obviously had his own off-season, off-field issues, which I think have largely gone away. And Bill Belichick, who is this evil genius, and Tom Brady, who is like the most handsome man in the world, married to Giselle. Would the two of them like to go and move to Hollywood for a year and rescue a franchise in the LA Chargers?
I've never heard Tom Brady described as the most handsome man in the world. Like the most successful quarterback for sure, but like it's based on his talents as a footballer, I would have thought.
I mean, come on.
Well, like if he floats your boat, then good for you. But I've never once.
And if you can ignore the facts, and plain as day facts in front of your head, if you're uncomfortable with that, you just got to get over it.
You see a flailing quarterback, it really lessens the attraction for me. So what was the power struggle? Was that last season or the season before, when Tom Brady's personal assistant or whatever he is was the
Guerrero
was a bone of contention between a lot of people in the Patriots locker room. And
so just for anybody who doesn't know this, he has, the way that Paul Pogba has his own guys. That was a big controversy last week. Well, Tom Brady literally has his own guys who used to come in and be his training staff as opposed to the official training staff. He'd be at the training sessions. He'd be training him and training Rob Gronkowski and training Julian Edelman and a couple of others. So like there was this little kind of, almost cultish thing going on, like a little Church of Scientology style. Obviously, they weren't Scientologists, but it had that bang.
To clarify.
Had the bang of that off him. And eventually, Guerrero was like banned from the facility. So he kind of moved down the road, like literally on the complex, but down the road, and was no longer, his guys were no longer allowed to come in. So that happened, and then they won the Super Bowl and everybody forgot about it. Guerrero's still on the scene. He's got this business going with Tom Brady, the TB12 program. You can all subscribe to his lifestyle if you want. He's got a cookbook.
You can be as
like
handsome as
250 quid. You can make the avocado ice cream, because that's his treat is avocado ice cream. And look, obviously very committed to his health and his well-being, and it's worked out for him very well.
He is going to live to be 110 years old.
Guerrero, not a doctor, by the way, no actual qualifications. He may have credentials, to quote The Simpsons. The BBC's Adam Pope was on the football show last night talking about the Premier League ambitions of Leeds United and whether or not their current squad will need much upgrading if they go up.
I think you'd be quite loyal to a lot of these players. Calvin Phillips certainly has developed into a Premier League quality player. Other head coaches before him and knew he had talent, but the way he's developed, he was linked with a big money move to Aston Villa, which they staved off in the last sort of transfer window, if you like. So, and there are a few others. Jack Harrison, who's been at Manchester City as well, he's come on leaps and bounds this year. Stuart Dallas, who'd had a fairly average sort of period at Leeds, after him come from Brentford, he's sort of 9 out of 10 every week for Leeds now. One of the most versatile players. Probably could do a bit of a job in the Premier League for them as well. So I think he'd stick with a lot of them. I think not just out of blind loyalty, but honestly because he believes he's coached them to a level. He's been asked that a lot of times as well about certain players, but it's not something he likes to indulge in and say, I'll have 5 or 6 or 7 of these in the Premier League, because they don't talk about the P word at the moment at all. But clearly they've got a plan at some point if this great season continues, because it will become an inevitability if they continue in the same vein. Personally, I think even now, I think there's still a few light. And up front, Patrick Bamford, yes, he's got 10 goals this season, but on his own, that's not going to be enough at the moment. They are going to need more firepower. They are going to stay in the Premier League too. But I think they've got the nucleus of a side that could actually compete pretty well.
Adam Pope of the BBC talking about Leeds last night on the football show. Tom Malone is here at the Sports News.
Hi, Chair. How's it going?
Good.
We'll start with last night in the football. Ole Gunnar Solskjær admits that Manchester United's display in the 3-1 League Cup semi-final, first leg defeat to Manchester City last night, left a lot to be desired. United were pulled asunder after first half goals from Bernardo Silva and Riyad Mahrez at Old Trafford before Andreas Pereira turned the ball into his own net before half-time. Marcus Rashford did pull one back with 20 minutes to go to give United a glimmer of hope with his 17th goal of the season. Return leg upcoming in 3 weeks' time. But City boss Pep Guardiola Iraola says Silva and his goal set the tone.
An outstanding goal from Bernardo, and after we play really good. It is not over because it's United, but hopefully when our fans we can make a good game and reach the final again.
Reds boss Ole Gunnar Solskjær, though, says it was a poor Red Devils performance.
From their goal till half-time, yeah, it's the worst that we played. We were running in between, the pressure didn't work, we let them play, and our heads dropped. We just made decisions that we shouldn't do.
The second semi-final is between Leicester City and Aston Villa this evening. Kick-off at the King Power Stadium is at 8 o'clock. And Fox's boss, Brendan Rodgers, says it's important to establish a lead ahead of that second leg.
The players have been brilliant up until this point. We've had away games every round of this tournament, so this is nice for us to have the first leg at home, and we want to go and hopefully create some sort of advantage to take to Villa Park.
Elsewhere in football, the MD of Goodbody Stockbrokers, Roy Barrett, and the Olympic Federation of Ireland chief, Sarah Keane, are being linked with the independent director positions that are set to be announced by the Football Association of Ireland this week. The appointment of those directors is believed to be vital to trigger much-needed government funding for the cash-strapped organisation. Meanwhile, the FAI board are also expected to meet to discuss the proposal to allow Shamrock Rovers B side to compete in the League of Ireland First Division next season. Of course, they're just 9 teams in that, so without Shamrock Rovers B, every team won't be able to play every week. So quite the situation there. Meanwhile, Tottenham Hotspur could be in line to discuss a possible move for Crystal Palace star Wilf Zaha. Spurs will be without midfielder Moussa Sissoko until April. The Frenchman has undergone knee surgery and joins Harry Kane on the treatment table. Elsewhere last night, Sadio Mane was crowned African Footballer of the Year. The Senegal international was rewarded for his part in an incredible year with club Liverpool. He deposes clubmate Mo Salah, who was second, with Manchester City's Riyad Mahrez in third. And it's been reported today in rugby that Colby Fainga, Connacht's back row, could be poised for a move to big spending Lyon. The flank has been with the Western Province since joining from the Melbourne Rebels in 2018. But reports in France say Lyon are in advanced talks with Fainga as they look to rejuvenate their back row. And finally, in Gaelic games, the Dr McKenna Cup in Ulster this evening. Tyrone play Armagh at the Athletic Grounds, while it's Down versus Antrim in Newry, and Derry welcome Donegal to Celtic Park.
Tom, good stuff. Thanks for that. We're going to talk with Tadhg Kennelly next here on OTBAM. First, let's hear from Mickey Harte speaking to the BBC about the rumours of Cathal McShane's exit to Australia.
I'm not been a fan of the engagement we've had with the AFL over many, many years now, and I think that's the sad thing about it. It used to be in the past we had unknown Australians trying to woo our players out to their AFL league. Now we have ex-Gaelic players doing it, which really saddens me that that's what we've got now. We've got recruits for the AFL within our own ranks of the GAA, and that's sad.
Do you see that almost then like the enemy within?
Well, it's something that you knew was going to happen. All you need to do is get a few players out there first and get them sort of involved to some degree, and we find that most of them come home and haven't made it out there at all, and often don't even play as good a Gaelic football when they get back. But now they've got a different role. Now they can be agents for the AFL, and it's an absolute free gamble for them. If our players succeed out there, that's a cheap gamble, and if they don't, they send them back home to us to see can we continue to play football with them.
All right, that's Mickey Harte speaking with the BBC earlier on this week, obviously in the aftermath of Cathal McShane heading down to Australia for what looks like a 2-week trial at the moment. I'm delighted to say we've got Tadhg Kennelly on the line. Tadhg, I know you must have been very interested listening to the debate that's been raging back in Ireland at the moment about this. Again, Mickey Harte kind of been in the vanguard of people complaining about the relationship between the GAA and the AFL over the years. I know you're not currently recruiting for the AFL, but you have done that in the past. So when you heard Mickey's comments, what did you think?
Morning, boys. Afternoon it is here in Sydney. Well, up the coast of Sydney. Look, it's nothing new. Obviously, the comments you understand. I understand where he's coming from. I can see both sides of it. Of course, he's going to be disappointed. When you look at Cathal getting an opportunity, and obviously Conor McKenna's another one, of course, from Tyrone. But I understand Mickey. I understand the fact that he doesn't appreciate the relationship with the AFL. I understand that he's trying to protect his own backyard, as I would if I was a manager running the county team at home and one of my star players was being given an opportunity to go play a professional sport. Are
you surprised, though, that this attitude continues to exist in Ireland, where somebody goes off and has, in Cathal McShane's case, a 2-week trial, it looks like at this stage, and maybe a contract at the end of that, but an opportunity to go away and be a professional sports person.
Yeah, look, again, I suppose I'm always sick of I'm not sick of it, but I understand that it's a consistent theme that pops up regularly, and I understand the frustration with people at home in the GAA, that the fact that they're going to lose, I suppose, their star players to another code. But look, the argument can be thrown many ways. You're going to lose players to rugby, you're going to lose players to soccer, you're going to lose players to a lot of situations that happen in county boards at the moment where the players aren't treated properly. So there's lots of argument. I think the media jump on the one, and it's an easy target as far as players going over to Australia playing AFL. No, when it is an all-star player getting an opportunity, obviously there's going to be a lot of media publicity about it. And the other fact that we call is AFL list lodgement. I'm an assistant coach at the Swans now at the minute. AFL list, or list, which is basically your playing list, their final list has been lodged for the 2020 season, so he can't play this year. So he'll be playing with Tyrone in the Championship this year. He can come out in July if he does get a mid-season draft, which is highly unlikely for an international player. Generally, a mid-season draft in the AFL is for a club that's had a number of injuries in a position where they can actually go to a lower league like the VFL or the Waffle in Western Australia, whatever, and pick up a player and put him straight onto the list so they can fill a spot where they've had injuries during the season. So he can't play this season, so he'll be playing for Tyrone in the Championship.
Can you just clarify that? Because I don't think anybody realised that. I think that everybody assumed that this would happen straight away. He can't go. Could he go out on a developmental contract and not play and play second tier, or is there?
He can't. No, if he's going to be on the list, and if he doesn't play, if he's not on the list and he plays with a second tier team, he doesn't qualify as an international rookie, which means he's got to go into the draft next year. So he can't play AFL this year unless, like I said, he gets into a mid-season draft in the middle of the year, which is highly unlikely for an international player, and that's in July. So I think what they're doing is obviously giving them the opportunity to have a look at him. I know Cathal, when I was working and recruiting, he was part of the players we looked at as an 18-year-old, and he was one that actually came to the combine in Dublin, and just wasn't appealing to the AFL clubs that were there.
Just out of interest, have you ever had conversations with Mickey Harte himself about this? Because he says in that same BBC interview, it will be a far better future for him if he stays at home, which seems like a fairly big generalisation about any one man's future.
Yeah, I look, I'd love to have a conversation with Mickey, no problem. I'd love to sit down with him and tell him the pitfalls of staying at home, the pitfalls of going and playing a professional sport. There's always pitfalls to anything that you do, but there's also positives, and I'm a pretty positive person, glass half full type of guy. My understanding, my reading of the situation really is he's obviously not too happy with the situation. It hasn't been for a long time. It hasn't been a fan of the international rules where we've played and get to represent. No, there's a lot of people aren't fans of that, but he hasn't been a fan of the code and the relationship with the GAA and the AFL for a long time. But look, I appreciate his opinion. He can have his opinion, and he's been very strong on it for a long, long time. Look, of course, there's pitfalls to staying and going to the other side of the world. His comments about players coming back not playing better. Well, there's examples of him the other way. Colin Begley came back and has been fantastic for a long time with Laois. Brendan Murphy was the same when he was with the Swans. With the Carlo came back. Chrissy McKay, who was with the Swans, went back. Is dominating with his club and captain of Derry. So there's examples the other way, and there's examples everywhere. And to say the players go out and come back lesser players, I think that's a throwaway comment from me.
I presume it's based on Kyle Coney, really, who obviously was out with you guys, I think, in 8 to 10, and hasn't really kicked on to be the type of footballer that everybody assumed he would be on the basis of his career.
Yeah, well, Kyle never lasted. Kyle played, came 6 weeks out, and that was it. So if you're going to look at the Kyle Coney example, that's more of your own development program in your own county, as far as why Kyle hasn't gone on and played and established himself as a senior, one of the most talented minors or footballers ever to play the game. And so that's nothing to do with the game of the AFL, the journey of going playing a professional sport. It's more of your own development programs and why players like that slip through the gaps.
Yeah, I think there's probably it's a hoary old cliche at this stage that players come back from AFL a bit broken, that the intensity and the load is so high for these players. It's such a physical sport that it's difficult for them to recover.
And it's right. It is a throwaway line. It's a line that's been thrown away for the last 25 years ago. Probably was when it was applicable. But now you look at the physiques of Gaelic footballers, and you often see that when I see the international rules. And the physical side of the Gaelic players are bigger now and stronger. And I think it is an issue with some of the Gaelic footballers at the moment. I think they've swung too far the other way. That's another argument. But whereas the AFL players now, the game itself has gone totally the other way. They're very conscious of concussion. The physical side of the game is almost being taken out of the game. Only right because of what was going on in the game, we'll say 20 years ago or odds, I still say to people that I play a lot of championship games at home, and play from the stall at home, and I'm watching my back more in those games than I ever did in a 12-year career with the Sydney Swans as a professional athlete.
There's been a couple of different things floated tide. There's obviously been this kind of throwaway comment about perhaps compensation for clubs, which probably won't get into because it's hard to know where that begins and ends. But the one kind of concrete piece...
Well, I'll actually say that to you. Actually, I went to Andrew Dimitri about 16 years ago now and said that I wanted my club compensated. Said no problem, and went to the GAA, and the GAA said no, we can't do it. It seems to be paying for our players. That was 15 years ago when I actually asked AFL were willing to do it, and the GA kicked back and said no.
That's interesting. Was that because they felt like they don't actually own the rights to the player, and so that would have ended up because the players would then have had the argument, well, if you're charging for us, then you have to pay for us.
That's right, exactly, spot on. And I just found it very interesting that the AFL no problem because that's what they do here. No different to the soccer over obviously that you compensate a club, and that's what the AFL do here for players that are recruited from a junior club. They get compensated, and when the player plays 50 games, 100 games, 150 games, they get a certain amount of money to the club.
The point I was actually trying to make, Tadhg, is what we actually have seen the GAA do, or what we have seen counties do, and Kerry have, I guess it was something that was circulated on social media last year about this project to keep players at home, to provide them with a dossier of available courses, available jobs and things to keep them at home. Like, would you be encouraging counties such as Tyrone to perhaps have a look at that, to perhaps not just try and keep people at home, but to give them all the available suite of options at their disposal?
100%, and like I said at the start, if I was sitting there at home and I was the manager of Kerry, I'd be doing everything possible I could to be, the talks with David Clifford. What would you like, David? How do we make these young men want to play for Kerry football and make it appealing for our under-20s and 17s and whatnot coming through to stay at home? Because it's hard to stay at home at the moment, as we know. There's not a whole lot of jobs and there's not a whole lot of opportunities at home. So how do we do it as a county board? One, as far as job opportunities, and two, obviously development programs that we set in place where actually these young men are progressing on to the next stage of their careers and actually adding some value to the senior inter-county team. And that's certainly a program that you'll be looking for. And not, I suppose, you're going to get caught in the media limelight of we're losing a player. We're always going to lose players. You're going to lose players to alcohol. You're going to lose players to drugs. You're going to lose players to society and social issues. You're going to lose them to other sports, and it's about limiting the impact of how that happens. And if there's a common trend in it happening, well, then you got to do something about it and try and stop that. And that's the same in business as it is in sport.
Are you personally happy that you're not involved in the recruitment side of things yourself when you see these sort of stories rage up every so often?
Not really. I enjoyed giving opportunity to young men playing that I got, and that's what was most appealing to me at the time. When I finished playing, I just saw, I suppose there was a lot of stuff that was going on at home as far as recruiting from AFL clubs. It just wasn't nice. It was becoming a nasty underworld where young players were getting offered opportunities at 14 and 15, and they got to live their lives at this stage. You can't be offering opportunities. And I made it basically went to the AFL and said, look, we got to clean this up, and we're going to make it where if you want to get drafted to the AFL, you've got to be 18 years of age or 19 years of age, and put protocols in place for Irish players coming out and clean it up a bit, because it was just getting out of hand. And I've never said no regrets to it. I'm very happy with what I've done. I'm very happy with what I'm doing at the moment, coaching.
Ty, can we just go back? You said Cathal McShane was at the combine that you were organising. He would have been an 18-year-old. What has changed that suddenly a couple of clubs are actually interested in him? Has he physically improved? Has he got better as an athlete, do you think? What happened there?
My initial opinion of him is obviously lightning speed and a bit erratic, I think, with his composure and ball and hand. And obviously we've seen that clean up quite drastically. I also think probably clubs are willing more now than ever in Australia to take a chance on a 23-year-old, which normally in the past they wouldn't have, because, like I said, of the physiques now of the Gaelic footballers, that the players now are ready to play almost when they come over and play, which is highly unlikely for a player to play in his first year once they get to an AFL club. But it's probably that he's physically ready. Whether he can play the game, in the first few months would be a huge challenge for someone to make that transition so quickly.
So what would that process be if he comes over and does well in that 2-week trial with Adelaide? What would happen then?
With Brisbane.
Brisbane, sorry, yeah.
Yeah. What would happen? They'd be continuing on. Look, we'd probably offer you a contract if they were happy with what happened and how they saw it. Send him back home, continue on his year, obviously. They'd more than likely try and get him back out again throughout the year when it suited his fixture and whatnot, and then obviously sign him in early October, November as an international rookie.
Right, so that's how that would work. It's actually the Crows. The Crows said that they've got him on trial for 2 weeks, or they've got So that I think that just came through late last night. It's an interesting scenario where Tyrone felt that they obviously had lost him and they might get one last year out of him. So that might be a win-win for everybody, where he gets to go and have the crack at a professional lifestyle and has one last season to say goodbye, and who knows where that takes him.
Yeah, and that's right. I think I often say to people, when that are quite negative in the whole thing about, and I understand it, like I keep saying to people, I understand the sports situations. I understand being a Kerryman. I want to win all Ireland, and I understand it. But I also throw back to them, can you imagine your 18, 19-year-old son, if you had a son, or a brother getting an opportunity put in front of him, and you said, no, I don't want you to do it, I want you to stay at home. It's a very difficult thing to do once it's put in front of you as any footballer. And that's kind of the argument I put back to people about, you can't stop them from doing it, and you should be encouraging just at least look at the opportunity in front of them, whether they like it or not, and it's not for everyone.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think that, what is the point of helping our young people to develop through sport if it's not to ask them to be their best selves? And your best self is trying everything that comes your way and having a look at it and going for it. And then if it doesn't work out, we're a safety net for you because we're part of your community, and we actually encourage you to go away and come back to us.
You couldn't be more spot on, Joe. I think that the fact that as a club, or with the store limits my own club, they should be extremely proud of the fact that I was able to go away and play because of the development they put into me and go and play as a professional footballer. And they've always been there for me, like you said, as a safety net. But you want to develop your players to become the best they can. If they go on to be All-Ireland medal winners, if they go on to represent their county, if they go on and become professional footballers at soccer or rugby or AFL, whatever it be, well, you've done a fantastic job and you should be very proud of yourself.
Tadhg, just a final one for me. Can you give us a scoop on who the next athletic prospect from the GAA might be from the AFL's perspective?
Oh, God. I've been out of it now for too long. Well, look, I wouldn't know how to tell you this right now. As far as what I've been doing the last 3 years now is coaching the Swans, and I will say we've picked up Barry O'Connor from Wexford, a 21-year-old boy. He's been very, very promising over the pre-season. He signed a 2-year deal with us, and he's taken it to duck the water, really. So yes, he's been very, very good, very strong, big man. So who knows as far as Barry's career has gone.
I can't let you go, Tadhg, without asking you about the situation in Australia at the moment. The bushfires are on the front page of all the newspapers here on a almost daily basis at this point, and they just have been continuously raging to the point where they were centre of our news for ages, and then kind of it's drifted away over the last week or two, but things haven't got any better, unless the rain over the last 24 hours might have helped a little bit.
Yeah, no, not much rain really. I'm up the coast actually, up in Queensland, up in Hampton Island, which is about an hour or 2 hours north of Sydney. We've had a 3-week break off, so we had the Christmas. I'm just finishing up, but yeah, it's been horrendous. It's quite scary or spooky, I suppose, when you're in your own house, and I'm in the eastern suburbs of Sydney, which is not too far from the coastline, and you've got ash on your car and all over your house. You know, when it's that close to the city, and obviously you see the damage that's caused, and the amount of, you know, people homeless and the lives that are lost, and the size of the fires. You know, it's hard to comprehend it, I suppose, when you come from a small country town like the Stone. You're looking at the size of these fires and the acres that are being burnt, and the work that people are doing to try and stop it. It's quite scary, and it's not the biggest natural disaster this country's ever had.
Yeah, I presume people are not really talking about much else at the moment. Is there a sense that there's going to be a change on the back of this? Is there a political movement being born?
It looks well. There's a lot of political game going on at the moment. Obviously, the climate change issues has been a thorn in this country for a long, long time, and the government that's in place at the minute haven't been really, I suppose, forthcoming in the way they've approached the issue of climate change. And Scott Morrison, the government at the moment, the Prime Minister, has copped a bit of criticism for the way he's handled the whole situation now. A lot of people talk about the preventing that they can backburn here, which is obviously trying to prevent the fires from happening when they can burn beforehand. But there's been a lot of issues with obviously the environmental control of creating fires and the damage it's doing. But there's some serious political issues going on at the moment, and you could see some changes because he's under a lot of fire.
Well, look, we hope they get them under control sooner rather than later. Tadhg, great to have you with us, and thanks very much. Enjoy whatever of your holidays is left.
No problem, lads. Thanks for having me.
OTB AM. This is OTB Sports Radio.
The Saturday panel on Off the Ball.
There's a growing hostility towards cyclists. We're somehow seen as a nuisance, when in fact we're just people trying to get to work.
I've never ever gotten one bad word said to me about my sexuality, or from the opposition, or from, actually in one bad times nearly, the girl was marking me so tightly I was like, I have a girlfriend.
I'm not the person I was 10 years ago, and that doesn't worry me. I know I can play good enough golf.
Don't miss the panel every Saturday afternoon, only on Off the Ball.
The Sport Ireland campus Blanchardstown is the home of Irish sport, not just for our athletes, but for you and the community. For families, check out our kids' camps, sport academies and birthday parties. For adults, why not join our newly refurbished gym with a 50-metre swimming pool, or book one of our world-class indoor or outdoor facilities, including our athletics track, sports pitches and courts. And for companies, check out our team building days, conference facilities and events. All this and more at sportirelandcampus.ie.
OTB AM.
Okay, very good morning to you. Welcome back. Ooh, stick on the mic. Very good morning to you. Very welcome back. It's 3 minutes past 9 this morning here. The top 5 stories for you that we're covering here across the day on offtheball.com and right here for you on OTBAM this morning. The FAI latest. It looks like Roy Barrett of Goodbody Stockbrokers will be put forward as the new independent chair tonight when the FAI board meets. Today is one of the days that we thought was going to be a hinge point for the whole story, where the FAI board would elect 4 independent directors, and from those 4 independent directors, a new chair of the board would be elected. Sarah Keane has also today been connected to one of those independent director roles, although we haven't had confirmation of that. We do believe here at Off the Ball that Roy Barrett will be put forward, assuming that he allows himself to be put forward and that he's agreeable to it, as the new chair of the FAI board. So that should happen tonight. Cathal McShane, we've been talking about that story this morning. A new interesting wrinkle came from our interview there with Tadhg Kennelly, where he suggested that years ago he went back to the AFL and suggested to the AFL that they should actually allow the clubs who take Irish players to pay compensation to the GAA, but that the GAA turned down that offer. We've subsequently been speaking with the GAA about why that might have happened, and as expected, it was because it wouldn't sit very well with the amateurism rule. I think this is a fair enough and a very consistent position for the GAA to hold.
It definitely is, although it's a consistent position for them to hold, but then there is a kind of a lack of definition around it, as you can imagine, because this is a new development, and, well, relatively new, the last 20 years or so. But like,
is there any way they could pay it to a central, like they could pay the GAA, or does that become too transactional.
Well, the whole point, though, is that the club produced this player, not the GAA at central level.
But then the money gets redistributed and you get a super bonus.
I think the point, though, is around counties being unhappy about their players being poached, in inverted commas. So I can see why they would want something for their player who has become a professional prospect, but at the same time, it doesn't align with the amateurism of the GAA.
Can't.
Like paying for a player.
You can't put a value on a player and then have the player say, I don't want any of that money, or expect that it would be fair for them not to. So who got the money for me when I was transferred? How was the value placed on me, and why am I not getting any of that? Wouldn't that be the...
Like, it should just be an automatic clubhouse or something. The Cathal McShane clubhouse in his club. Just automatically just give them something. That's not cash.
Rest of the stories that we're covering here for you this morning. Irish Rugby hope. A lot of hope bubbling up in the newspaper today. I'll come back to that in 1 second. And then Stephen Cluxton, Tommy Carr says in the papers today that he expects Cluxton to return. Glen Whelan, though, obviously parted ways by mutual consent with Hearts yesterday. It didn't seem that mutual from the comments that are coming out today from Glen Whelan. He felt like he was being frozen out by the new manager there. And a bonus, top 5 stories, number 6 is, I always have struggled with this, it's the tennis player Tsitsipas. Tsitsipas.
Yeah.
So, I don't know if you've seen this. Footage doing the rounds. It's a new ATP Cup. Australia versus Greece, games in Brisbane. For some reason, his coach is on the sidelines. He's up against Nick Kyrgios. So it's like 2 of the biggest children in world sport up against each other. Kyrgios wins the first set in a tiebreak. Afterwards, Tsitsipas gets very pissed off, batters his racket off the side of a Marriott sign, a sponsorship thing. His coach is sitting right there. His coach is his da. Your da. So bang, and the da kind of like, what are you doing? And then he bangs again on the other side of his da, this time clipping him on the arm. He hits his da with a tennis racket on the sidelines.
It's very, very bold behaviour from Stefano.
He gets a warning from the umpire. But worse, more humiliating than that, his ma comes down and starts going, and his dad gets up and no longer sitting at the side of the... And funnily enough, the wages of sin or death, he loses.
Did he do damage to his father's arm?
There's a bruise, a visible bruise, immediately.
You'd like to think if you're capable of serving a ball at 120 miles an hour, you can break a human arm with that. So, he should be going to him saying, there's no strength in your forearm. You didn't even break my arm. That should be the tough parenting. He's 21 years old. I mean, that's probably... it's still a ridiculous age to be getting told off by your parents in public.
Yeah, but he deserves it.
Good enough for him is what I say.
Good enough for him. This is not behaviour that we should be tolerating.
No, and the worst thing is he's going to be encouraging that child, Nick Kyrgios, bad influence on other children around the place.
But look, I mean, if he's like
peacefully
that...
control your son, Mr. Kyrgios. Or Mr. Tsitsipas, I should say.
This is a game you're playing. You play a game. You play a game and you get angry like this. Do you care about anything else other than it's more narcissistic bullshit from sports people? Right, so that was number 6. We've got to talk briefly about the return of Stephen Cluxton, Tommy Carr, ex-Dublin manager. I think it's in the back of the Herald. It says that he will come back. That's what Tommy Carr's feeling is. That's his belief.
I do think Stephen will stay on, he says. I didn't even know this was up for discussion.
Of course it is. I mean, last year we weren't sure he was coming back.
He's injured at the moment as well. Also something I didn't realise.
Right.
Is
this giving you hope?
No.
Is this more like hope for Kerry?
Cluxton surely would have announced it by now. And
No.
I know he said the same thing about Jim Gavin, but is January not very late for retirement?
No, is it it's sure Paul Flynn retired after the league last year, didn't he?
True.
I think he has to come back and see if he's, we had a current on sabbatical Cavan footballer in yesterday, said that he went back training and it was after he'd gone training for a week that it was like, okay, so I think that...
But the injury complicates matters then.
Yeah.
He's got to see how he's feeling when he comes back from this current knock. I don't quite know what the injury is, but we saw last year, and we saw, was it the year before as well, but certainly last year, Evan Comerford getting a few more chances between the sticks for Dublin, and of course that was out of necessity at times. in the Leinster Championship the previous year, for example, when Cluxton had got injured. But I think that there was also a name from Jim Gavin that a successor needs to be found pretty quickly, and due to the importance of the goalkeeper, that successor needs to come in and be fairly confident in the gloves and at the tee as well. So I think that they've been trying to mould Evan Comerford into that player, and maybe this is the little warning sign at the start of the season as well, just another warning sign for Dessie Farrell that Cluxton will not last forever. 1-2 years left perhaps, and Evan Comerford needs to be good to go.
I think Cluxton got to 44, 45. Like, I mean, I tell the story a bit, but we were out one time in the training area that they used to use out in the, it was called NADA, it was on the, before they train where they are, and there was like times and stuff on the board, and Cluxton was top of the charts for like agility and all that kind of stuff.
What year?
I mean, it's 3 or 4 years ago now at this stage, but like when everybody already thought of him as a veteran, so like keeps himself in good nick. Apparently there was a picture of him.
That's impossible. If he was topping these physical charts against the likes of Jack McCaffrey, Michael Darragh McCauley.
So there were specific, so it wasn't just pace.
Okay.
You know, it's like it was literally the 3-cone drill and all that kind of stuff, the combine type stuff that they did, and his name was scratched on the board at the top. Apparently the Mirror were saying that Cluxton had a sling for his injury, so it's an arm injury of some sort.
I totally missed that news myself, I must admit.
I think it was out on New Year's Day.
Okay.
Or the day after New Year's Day when you were lying in a buckfast heap somewhere.
I wish.
He's on the beach in Bali with a sling in his arm. So, Glen Whelan is the other big story from this morning's newspaper. Aidan Fitzmaurice has an exclusive with him where he got some fairly juicy quotes from him.
Yeah, so Glen Whelan gets told he's not in the Stephen's Day squad, in the 18 men's squad for Hearts' game on Stephen's Day, by text in the, as you were saying earlier on, the full players WhatsApp group at 9:20 in the evening. Now, initially I thought it was 9:20 in the morning, so the Hearts manager has regained some semblance of positivity with this new information that's come to light, and he basically says, screw you, and he's been let go and he's now looking for a new club. But one of the things that really sticks out to me from this piece is how much Glen Whelan cares about the Republic of Ireland. And the first thing that kind of comes to mind, granted he's talking to an Irish journalist, is about how March is in his crosshairs and Mick McCarthy potentially won't pick him unless he's playing for a club. And that is what's going to be at the top of his priority list now, is getting into a position where he's match fit for the game and hopefully games come March. So look, he's probably talking what club, hopefully near the top of the championship, pushing for promotion in the championship. Like, obviously played a great role with Villa last year.
Yeah.
And like, he was good for Ireland last year. Really good for Ireland comparatively to some of Ireland's other performers, I should say, in 2019. So like, he's definitely available and will contribute to a club in the championship, you'd suspect, and you'd like to think that the level of scouting that clubs have at the moment, they'll pick him up pretty quickly. Yeah,
there's loads of teams that he could play for in the championship. If he's playing League One, is that too low for him to play for Ireland? I don't think it is at this stage of his career, is it?
Maybe not. It's probably just to keep him ticking along. Like, we're not looking for a progression from Glen Whelan at the moment. We're just looking for him to be fit and available and playing at a decent professional level going into March. But yeah, the story is rather extraordinary. Like, the Hearts manager doesn't seem like the most pleasant character, Daniel Stendhal. So like, he's just, I guess, texting anybody at 9:10 in the evening in Christmas Day. Like, you should be texting your mate saying, "Oh, Back to the Future's on." You shouldn't be texting someone saying, "Yeah, mate, your career's over."
Yeah, and you know, it's a big game. It's a derby game. It's an opportunity for them anyway. They lost, so ultimately, Whelan might have had the last laugh here. But it looks like Whelan was singled out by the manager early on, according to Whelan's account, where Whelan had been man of the match in 5 out of 7 games, and as soon as the manager came in, he was already singling him out, saying, "Oh, you know, this guy needs to pick it up. There's no leadership coming from him. I haven't seen any of that kind of stuff." So, not a great situation for him. I'm actually better off being out away from that, and I've no doubt that he'll pick a club fairly soon. We were calling it Rugby Hope, a new hope.
You were saying a new hope was crap earlier on. Just checked it there. 8.6 on IMDb and 93% on Rotten Tomatoes. Never mind, not going to bog us down. Rugby, a new hope. So we've got a couple of articles this morning. You were saying Gordon Darcy in the Irish Times is relatively positive.
Yeah, he's picking Jack O'Donoghue out as somebody who he compares him to Rocky Elsom, which is very high praise.
That is huge praise.
I mean, like, so stick him in the Ireland team. Let's get him on.
100%. Like, you got Donald Lennon, the Examiner, positive as well, and Rory O'Connor is positive in a Munster sense as well. Like, we might just start with like Donald Lenihan, because he's talking about Andy Farrell and reasons to be positive around Andy Farrell. Pinpoints a couple of areas. One of them is the fact that he just expects the Ireland camp to be a happier place to exist in now. He thinks that there was kind of a little bit of a culture of fear under Joe Schmidt. A little bit is probably putting it lightly, and that things should be a little bit different under Andy Farrell, that the players are already very self-critical. They don't need the huge draconian level of video analysis, being embarrassed in front of your teammates under Andy Farrell. No suggestion that that's going to change, but obviously Lennon has some sort of hunch that it will. He talks about the captaincy, and I think Lennon's kind of behind the idea that James Ryan should be made captain now and to actually grow into the role of captain, mentioning that Andy Farrell was a young rugby league captain for Great Britain himself.
18, I think.
Yeah, so perhaps he sees a bit of himself in James Ryan. And actually, to be honest with you, reading Donald Lenihan's column, the more I kind of think, just give it to James Ryan. Just let him grow into the role. Like, it is something that you surely have to learn the ropes of a small bit. And like Peter O'Mahony's position isn't certain in the back row anymore. Johnny Sexton obviously
isn't fit at the moment.
Exactly. So you're going to have somebody other than Johnny Sexton leading Ireland into the Six Nations. It's a great opportunity for someone like James Ryan to now step up, because he is a banker to start in every game as long as he's fit for the foreseeable future for Ireland, and he has the leadership qualities. Forget about his age. The other thing that kind of strikes me though from reading all of these columns, and I think it's Eamon Sweeney made the point in the Sunday Independent at the weekend, that the narrative has changed very quickly. When Ireland were having all the success in the world, people were like, well, it's great that there's a continuation on from the Joe Schmidt era, that Andy Farrell is now going to step up. There is going to be a great transition. It's going to be very smooth. And now all of a sudden, the whole narrative has flipped on its head to, well, at least it's not Joe Schmidt. There's going to be a new era under a new coach. And I think only time will tell regards to what the reality of the situation is, how different things will be.
Yeah. Just to talk about Jack O'Donoghue briefly, because it's very high praise from Darcy in his piece today. It's worth stalling over the 25-year-old. This is high praise, perhaps too high, but I thought about Rocky Elson watching O'Donoghue in full flow over Christmas. It might be time to give him a permanent position. The utility player has negative connotations in the Northern Hemisphere, as it usually means he doesn't discover his full potential. O'Donoghue looks the part when surrounded by the full Munster pack, with Stander and Kilcoyne helping to carry the ball. He's always possessed the raw materials to become an established Irish international, or it could go another way. That's up to the man himself. And then he talks about his mentality, and there's a line here: if less talented Munstermen could replicate this honesty of performance, they would push Jack O'Donoghue into the national setup. So, it would be great to have somebody like O'Donoghue in the back row for the game against Scotland, because it would certainly give a big boost to anybody in Munster who's on the fringes, and it would certainly put the cat amongst the pigeons in the Leinster back row and intensify the competition that they must already feel is hyper intensive to get into the national team. Because what is the national back row? We're going to do our depth chart this week, and the back row is at the moment unpickable, because we don't know who has form because the way the teams chop and change, who's been able to put 3 or 4 games in a row.
And injuries. Like at the end of the World Cup, it was CJ Sander, Peter O'Mahony, Josh van der Fleer, whereas Dan Levy has been injured. Like, you would have had Sean O'Brien obviously in the mix at the start of the calendar year. That's obviously changed now, not in the mix. Jack Conan got injured as well. He was next man up. You had a Jordy Murphy as the next man up after Jack Conan at age.
The squad.
Exactly. So it's changed entirely over the course of a few weeks. The great thing about the Jack O'Donoghue story is that if he does get a substantial amount of time in the Six Nations, it just shows everybody who might be on the fringes at the moment, look at the work you can do to actually get into the Ireland team in a very short amount of time. And that is if you're I don't know, struggling with fitness and only playing provincial rugby in the Pro 14, this is the level you can get to in a very short amount of time. So it's a great story, and I hope that Darcy's hopes are right about the player.
Yeah, and he was somebody who you kind of always felt like was going to make that step up, but never had the unbroken period of playing time and lack of injuries, the injuries give him lack of opportunities. He's getting that opportunity now, and even when the team is struggling, he's standing out, which is the sign of a really, really good player. So put him in a good team, surround him with the best players in the country, and see what happens. Who's your back row at the moment?
It's good.
Is Stander automatic at 8? I'm not sure. Is he?
But he's definitely not automatic in the general sense. I think probably going into this year's Six Nations, I would say he will be starting at 8, because you obviously have the 2 boys coming from Leinster now, and Deegan and Doris, and it's only a matter of time before. What are you about to say?
I'm about to say, look at what England did with the young back row.
Yeah,
they just they stuck 2 young lads in and they believed in them. Now, it was a roundabout way to get there because in the previous Six Nations they'd been in and out and everybody wasn't sure about it, but they got to the World Cup and they absolutely exploded. So, like, could you have a back row with Jack O'Donoghue and Caelan Doris and Van der Fleer?
Be exciting.
Wouldn't it?
I would be glued
Wouldn't everybody
to
be
every
like,
single
well, what's going to happen here?
Yeah. Like, let's not write Peter O'Mahony off just yet.
I'm not, but I'm saying, you know, like, have your old guard on the bench, right? What a team that is. Have your old guard trotting on. So you've got Murray and Peter O'Mahony and I don't know who else, maybe Devon Toner coming off the bench.
Not bad.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Right. It is 20 minutes past 9 this morning. It's time for a Deal or No Deal.
I signed for them after the Euros, and after my first day's training I was driving home, I was actually thinking, regretting it, what have I done? Like I walked into a circus. It's amazing, isn't it?
Phil Egan is here. Phil, good morning to you.
Good morning, how are you doing?
This is the most pressurised moment of the day.
It is. I feel like there should be a spotlight on me almost.
You've got to get the answers right.
There'd be an awful shine off my head, though.
There is a lot on the line. We have an actual deal. We're starting with an actual deal.
Hold on a minute. We did have more deals other than Minamino for yesterday. We all forgot about Jack Rodwell to Sheffield United. So, carry on. But like,
which is a big deal that a Premier League club has actually come in for Jack Rodwell.
Yeah, it's amazing, isn't it?
Yeah, he's done well there.
It was not confirmed. Danny Drinkwater's not confirmed. Danny Drinkwater is confirmed, yeah. We have an actual deal. Chelsea midfielder Danny Drinkwater, Chelsea midfielder, he's been on loan at Burnley, has completed a loan move to Aston Villa until the end of the season. This is a weird situation. But anyway, can Danny Drinkwater help save Aston Villa?
From what I saw of him for Burnley this season, he played one league game. That was against Manchester City. He was so far off the pace. So I don't know what he's going to bring to the Aston Villa midfield. You think he only played 23 times for Chelsea. I don't even remember him playing 23 times for Chelsea. It was a strange
Why did they sign him?
signing at the time. It was one of those Conte signings where you thought...
Right after they won the league, wasn't it?
It was this... Yeah, sorry, after Chelsea won the league.
Oh, right.
Yeah. No, Leicester, he didn't go straight after Leicester won the league. He did a season and then he went the next season. But it was one of those strange signings. You kind of said, do you know what? Conte has turned Victor Moses and Marcus Alonso into Premier League winning wing-backs. We'll trust him on this one. But it didn't really amount to anything, and he's pretty much been told you're not going to get any game time under Frank Lampard.
160 grand a week, apparently. Oh, maybe it's 110, is it? I don't know, the Athletic had the details on it anyway. Burnley only had to pay 60 grand, and Chelsea were like to Villa, look, you've got to pay the whole thing. Drinkwater got himself out of the Burnley clause. There was a break clause in January, which ran out on the 6th of January, and on the 7th he was having a medical at Villa. Once he heard Villa were interested,
and let's say Burnley were happy enough
I'm
to
getting out of here.
Go as well.
Well, Dyche says, it didn't really work out for him, couldn't break into the centre midfield, but he was injured in a fight outside a nightclub in September and only recently recovered. I was like, okay, that's is that what you want to inject into your...
This is where Villa are at the moment, where
they're blitz.
Villa are just trying a few things because Premier League survival is on the line.
I have another Villa story here which I'm going to skip forward to. According to the Telegraph, Aston Villa have been in contact with Crystal Palace over a move to re-sign Belgian striker Christian Benteke. Can Benteke save Villa's season?
No. He did a few seasons ago.
We love Christian
49
Benteke.
goals in 101 games for Villa.
He was great.
He hasn't played for them for 5 years.
He looked
we won't talk about what happened after. We won't talk about the fact that he hasn't scored a goal for Palace this season.
4 goals in 17-18 season.
Maybe when he puts on the Villa shirt again, it all comes back to him.
Maybe, because he was dynamic.
He got a move to Liverpool off the back of it.
Could score every type of goal. Yeah, he didn't do great stuff at Liverpool either, did he?
Apart from that overhead at Old Trafford, which gets overlooked because Martial scored in his debut that day. But Benteke...
The answer is no to the question. The answer is no. And what about saving Aston Villa as if they're in some sort of perilous state? They were not in the relegation zone.
They're pretty perilous.
1 point above it.
They're teetering around it. They've just got promoted. They're still figuring it out in the Premier League. They're going to be fine. Don't worry about it.
They've been dragged in. The worst thing is getting dragged in because then you don't know if you're ready for a fight.
Sort of thing.
And look, the thing is that they didn't stick with the team that got them up. They got rid of all of those players and that they should have just stuck with the team and then added 2 or 3 players.
It turns out they did a Fulham.
You're being revisionist too early, I think. Like,
No.
Wait till they actually survive in the Premier League for a season, and then you'll be like, well, that was actually a really good season from Aston Villa.
Oh, look, survival would be amazing.
They do need to sign, not Christian Benteke, though.
In Germany, Bild reports that Borussia Dortmund attacker Mario Götze will not sign a new contract and will leave the club on a free transfer when his contract expires at the end of the season. He was a previous Manchester United target, but that trail went cold. It is expected that any club would need to match the 27. He's only 27. He's the same age as Jesse Lingard. Would need to match the 27-year-old's 160 grand a week wages, which is nothing to the top clubs. Would a reunion with club at Liverpool be a good idea here?
No.
It'd be great for Mario Götze, but not for Liverpool.
Great for German sports writers.
Yeah, if Liverpool are looking for one player from Dortmund, it's Jadon Sancho, and not Mario Götze.
Yeah, that's pretty much.
Götze's past it.
You would have thought so.
washed?
Like, if you're signing a player who's struggling to get minutes, as you said there, for Borussia Dortmund, then if you profess to be the best team in the world, then you don't sign that player unless he comes in and says, I'm happy to be the new Xherdan Shaqiri. I'll make a contribution to 10 Premier League games a year, a significant contribution, and play your cup games for you, Jurgen.
160 grand a week, I'm your man.
Yeah, that's not going to fit into Liverpool's wage structure. I know they pay big wages, but they tend to give big wages to players that have earned those contracts. Not in you come, you're not doing so well, so I can't see it happening.
On to Italy. Corriere della Sera report that Arturo Vidal could be on his way to either Manchester United or Inter Milan for 20 million. Now, we brought you the fact yesterday that Arturo Vidal is 32 years of age. 20 million.
Still the case.
According to the paper, his agent Fernando Filicevic, who was the man behind Alexis Sanchez's amazing deal at Manchester United, he's travelling from South America to meet the two clubs, which you would do. Like, Man United, yeah, I've just chartered a jet. It's a giant Boeing 767.
I would watch a Fly on the Wall documentary about this guy that they've commissioned from South America to commission all these deals. I didn't even know that there was a Sanchez connection here, because I was just about to say that surely the Alexis Sanchez deal has scarred Manchester United for life, and that they will never, ever, ever sign somebody who resembles that, let alone an old player who also happens to be Chilean. Like, I mean, don't let that affect you, Manchester United, if you want to dig a hole deeper for yourself, especially if they're going down this route of youth, and some Manchester United fans may be able to look on the bright side of life at the moment. This would disrupt all of that. Yeah. Absolutely not. No.
If he goes into the United team, he makes an improvement straight away. But I would be siding with Owen in the fact that he's going to be 33 in May, and the strategy that United are supposedly putting in place is they want to recruit younger players. Now, they're not doing that much recruitment at the moment, but they can't be pressing the panic button. Unfortunately, though, they don't have the greatest strategy at the moment.
If Arturo Vidal was free, you'd say, yeah, no problems. But it's just a waste of 20 million, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Elsewhere, Inter Milan have inquired about Manchester United captain Ashley Young, 34. Conte tried to sign Young when he was the Chelsea coach in 2017, apparently, but signed Danny Drinkwater instead, which also worked out. Young is out of contract with Man United at the end of the season, so he's free to negotiate a pre-contract agreement with an overseas club this month, or he could leave now for a fee. How effective is Ashley Young at the age of 34? Should Man United just try and keep him?
No, what is with Conte's weird fascination with Ashley Young?
I don't know, but you're looking at Ashley Young going to Italy, you're thinking, it's working out pretty well for Chris Smalling at the moment. Maybe Ashley Young wants a bit of the Italian life, and I think he's one of those players that United fans would be happy to see the back of him, more so the fact that it's a reminder of where they're at the moment. That, you know, he had his merits as a United player when Fergie signed them, and obviously did a job as a left back under Mourinho. But I think
he's had a good Man United career. Like, he is not the cause of the problems.
No, absolutely not.
We also need to hold fire on the whole sort of Chris Smalling revisionism that's going on as well. The whole he looks great in Italy. United made a mistake in selling him. Like, think of all the players that have signed from Serie A and the Premier League and have just completely tanked. That have been terrible. It's a different league. It's a different style of football.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Sure. A few seasons ago, you're watching Liverpool play Roma, and who's playing centre half for Roma? Fazio.
There you go.
So, was he any good though?
Well, look, he was playing in a Champions League semi-final, which was
9:28 this morning. 16-year-old English prospect, could have been Irish. 16-year-old English prospect Louis Barry, who turned down pro contracts to join Barca's La Masia academy last year, is set to move to Aston Villa in a potential $3 million deal. That's obviously one for the future. This is a great story, where he was on the books. I mean, it's a great story if you're a Villa fan. It's a terrible story if you're a West Brom fan. He was on the books at West Brom since the time he was 6. to the time he's 16, they're like, oh, this is great because this guy's a superstar. Did he play underage for Ireland?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, played underage for Ireland.
He's already said, though, he's going to...
And he's still eligible.
He is, but he's actually said he wants to play for England.
Okay, I mean, you know, he can change his mind.
Well, here's the thing. So how do you find out about a player like Louis Barry, who none of us have seen play? You go onto his Football Manager profile. So I went onto his Football Manager profile, and I'm seeing a lot of green here. He's got excellent determination, excellent flair, very good dribbling, finishing and first touch, and his technical ability is great as well. Fantastic acceleration, great agility, and his natural fitness, also superb. That's the report on Louis Barry. Too much green there for him to be a Republic of Ireland player, I'm afraid. He's probably going to be good.
If he'd signed for an English club when he left West Brom, they would have had to pay him an absolute fortune, but he signs for Barcelona. Barcelona get him a cut price of 250 grand for a 16-year-old, and then Barcelona sell him almost immediately, 6 months later, to Villa for 3 million. Villa, happy, they've got the best player.
Yeah.
West Brom saying they're going to sue. Sue.
And the story
he's a lifelong Villa fan.
The story going around is that he's all of a sudden been left out of the under-19 Barcelona team.
Right.
He's unhappy that he hasn't got enough game time, so now he wants to come back to England.
Poor West Brom, putting all that time and effort in. They should get some compensation for that. Meanwhile, the Mail reports that Villa have been offered the chance to sign Spanish goalkeeper, former Liverpool goalkeeper Pepe Reina, 37 from AC Milan. I thought Pepe Reina was about 50 at this stage.
No, 30.
Is he still playing?
Yeah, he's
been on the bench for like 15 years.
Pretty much when he moved to Bayern Munich, that was him saying, look, I'm happy enough to be a backup keeper. So,
is that the best job in world sport?
No, third goalkeeper.
Third choice. Yeah, definitely. Think of Rob Green, Scott Carson. Like, there's no chance of you getting called into the team. Even Andy Lonergan signed for Liverpool this season, and there's no chance he's going to play a
And they're making a couple of million a year.
Like if I was Caoimhín Kelleher, I'd just try and make that my career niche. Just try and get to clubs where I can.
You need to be good enough to get to that level, though. You need to
drop off, yeah.
Yeah. So you need a couple of seasons of being first choice, and then you can drop down.
I'd like to think Caoimhín Kelleher has...
No, I'm definitely joking.
On the topic of goalkeepers, the Athletic report that Manchester United want Dean Henderson to challenge David De Gea for starting position when he returns from his loan spell at Sheffield United. He's going to take off his gloves, smack him in the face with them and say, I challenge you to a duel. Could this open the door to sell the Spaniard? Should Manchester United offload David De Gea if they get a serious offer? The answer is yes, of course it is. Sell him.
Where does Romero fit into this? He obviously played the game against Wolves at the weekend, made an unbelievable save against Doherty, and then you get the questions, who would actually be a better keeper, Romero or De Gea? Because De Gea is not as good as he used to be. But we only see Romero in like Europa League games, Cup games, so the sample size is quite small, but he's always impressive.
Have a battle in the off-season between Henderson and Romero and cash in on your asset at the moment, hit the reset button and continue. Change that culture, right?
Yeah, but you'd still pick De Gea over Henderson.
Yeah, but like you can get 100 million for him. Maybe not now.
I don't think you could.
You could have. You should have cashed in. Could you get 40 million
fax
for him?
machine wasn't
Could you get
broken,
60 million?
Who knows?
And what was that price?
It wasn't quite 100. Anyway. It was definitely over 50 anyway.
Yeah. That's the great sliding doors moment for Man United. Man City are interested in signing Wolves Spanish winger Adama Traore. This is not a good Villa story. Mundo Deportivo reports that Man City are interested in signing the Spanish winger but are not prepared to meet the 70 million that Wolves have put on him. What impact would the biggest arms in world football make on Manchester City?
Is this Pep Guardiola thinking, that Traore lad drives me mad, scored 2 against us at the Etihad, scored against us at Molineux, let's sign him so we don't ever have to play against him.
Was he the Barcelona coach who let him go? Was he around there or would it have been after him?
I think it was after him,
After, yeah. But he obviously would...
not get in the team ever.
No. I don't think he would
unless they play wing-backs.
I don't think he'd actually suit the way City play because he's a ball carrier. Has to be short, snappy passing with City, and
he's not as good as Mahrez or Sterling in that particular setup.
He's not a very good defender, is he? Which the
that's what I mean. It would have to be a back three, and then he would have to play way wider than City.
He's basically playing where Kyle Walker was playing last night.
And that was a back four, so.
Newcastle United are interested in signing former Liverpool winger Ryan Babel. There's a blast from the past from Galatasaray. What age is Ryan Babel?
33.
Correct. You just read it a bit.
We have the scripts as well.
Good guess.
Let's come back on. Ajax also linked to the move from.
You'd think he'd probably favour a move back to Ajax. He had a little run with Fulham last season. Did okay, but does he want to be involved in a relegation battle or go back to...
Money's probably better at Newcastle than it is at Ajax, isn't it?
Yeah, but Ajax, it's his home country.
Yeah, maybe.
Still a Dutch international.
Finish off there. And the Sun report that 20-year-old Manchester United prospect Tae Chong could be on the move, according to the paper, the Italian giants. Doesn't say which ones. Yeah, Juventus are offering Chong a $2 million signing fee and $35,000 a week. He's out of contract at the end of the season and so far failed to sign a new deal. Is he the new Paul Pogba?
He's definitely one of the things you would associate with Chong is his hair. So that's a similarity with Pogba. There's a start. I'm reaching here.
5-year deal for Manchester United.
We haven't really seen that much of him. He obviously played at the weekend against Wolves, but you look at the guys that have gone over to Juventus, from the Premier League, and like Aaron Ramsey.
What's he doing?
Emery Chan hasn't really worked out for him.
Last one, which has a bit of an Irish angle. Brighton's French striker Neil Maupay is a Napoli target, according to the Telegraph. How much of a loss would this be for the English club, and how good would it be for Connolly?
Well, Connolly would go straight up there. Maupay is clearly their best striker, and I don't know.
I don't like Connolly playing up front at the moment. I prefer him out wide. I watched him play against Spurs on Stephen's Day, and I just felt he looked frustrated up there. He couldn't get on the ball because the quality of the ball wasn't good enough to him.
Yeah.
So
it's a difficult, but like that's great learning though.
Yeah.
All those minutes, they count double.
But there was one moment in the game where he got the ball at his feet and ran at them, and you thought, that's the Aaron Connolly I want to see.
Right. Okay, so
I think this would be a good, decent move for Napoli. I'm unsure. Like, we've obviously seen him for half a season. But he's got like half a dozen goals or thereabouts. But he does look excellent.
Really bad team.
Like Newcastle should be looking at that signing, thinking to themselves, why couldn't we do that?
Yeah. All right. Okay. 9:35. Phil, good stuff. Thanks a million for that. That's all from us here this Wednesday morning on OTBAM. Thanks very much for joining us. Off the Ball is going to be back on your radios from 7 o'clock tonight. You can subscribe to the OTBAM podcast, which is fully time-stamped, which makes it very easy to find exactly what you want from every morning's 2-hour show. If you missed anything this morning, we brought you the top stories. Andy Mitten on the state of Manchester United. Deal or no deal, our Gaelic football power rankings are back. And the OTBAM Tadhg Kennelly interview. You'll find it on podcast or on YouTube. You can get us on your smart TV or on Go Loud. OTBAM, Ireland's first and only sports breakfast show, back tomorrow morning from 7:30 a.m. We'll see you then. Good luck.
OTB AM. This is OTB Sports.